Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started today, you guys. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Nevada Native Seed Forum. My name is Stephen Kalis with the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and I'm going to be your host this morning. Before we get kicking off here, I do have a few announcements that I would like to make. First off, this meeting is going to be recorded and will be available on the Nevada Department of Agriculture's YouTube channel soon after the forum has concluded. Now, normally we would also be making it available to the Nevada Native Seed Partnerships website. However, the current web page has been retired and is no longer being updated. We are in the process of updating that website for the future, so be on the lookout for more information pertaining to that once we have it up and running. I would like to go ahead and mention that if you're joining us virtually, you may have noticed that your webcam and microphone have been turned off and will remain so for the full duration of the forum. However, that does not mean that you can't interact with us. In the Q&A tab of Microsoft Teams, Russ Wilhelm, our Teams chat monitor over here, will be periodically posting discussion topics if you wish to engage that way. And if you have a question for one of our presenters, feel free to type it out in the chat tab, and Russ will repeat it at the end of their presentation or during a roundtable discussion portion of the forum. Now, since this is a forum-style event, we do want to encourage interaction from the audience with our presenters as well as with each other. If you are an in-person audience member and you have a question during your presentation, please wait until after it has concluded and raise your hand, and we will call on you in turn. The roundtable discussion is going to be a little more fluid, though. If you are an audience member and you wish to add to the discussion of a question posed to the presenters, feel free to raise your hand so that you can add your insights to that discussion. Now, before we move on, I do want to quickly address one particular topic. If you have attended our Native Seed Forums in the past, you may have noticed that we are missing a fair number of faces today. This is unfortunately due to the federal government still facing shutdowns. Most of the Nevada Native Seed Partnership members that are federal employees are unfortunately not going to be able to join us today. We do hope that this shutdown is resolved soon so that we may return to normal business. After the forum's conclusion, we are planning on sharing the contact information of all attendees and presenters to facilitate more connections within this community. If you would like your contact information to not be shared, please contact me and we will remove you from the contact list. You do have until November 14th to do so. Alrighty, just a few more and then we're almost there. I did want to mention that after the roundtable discussion, that will conclude the online portion of the forum today. At which point we will be moving over to the Sunset Pavilion for lunch. If you head straight out the library doors here, just take a right. It's the uncovered, it's the covered pavilion, just a few feet that way. And then finally, I would take a moment. I'd like to take a moment to remind our in-person attendees that the tour of the University of Nevada seed cleaning facilities will begin at 3:30 p.m. today. A map and directions are attached to the back of the schedule that we have available on this table. Transportation to and from the tour will not be provided, and the forum will end after the conclusion of the tour. So please be sure to plan accordingly. Parking will be limited, so please carpool if you can. And we will be meeting in the parking lot area to begin and end the tour. So please don't wander off when you get there. Alrighty, so that's going to conclude some of the announcements today. We're going to go ahead and get started with our presentations with myself. Let me go ahead and pull this up here and then we'll get going.
Any questions on any of that before Stephen gets rolling?
Do this in. Oops, let's change that around. There we go. All righty, y'all. So again, good morning to everyone. I think probably just about everyone knows me in this room at this point, but if not, I'm Stephen Kalis. I'm the native seed technician at the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and it's my job to help promote the growth of native seed production here in Nevada. And to accomplish that, we do have developed several different programs that are designed to help reduce the largest barriers to entry that are holding some producers back from expanding into the native seed industry. So today we're just going to be taking a look at some of these programs and highlight how each one supports our goals. So here's a quick overview about what we're going to be discussing today. First, we're going to take a look at some of our newest programs, such as the Contracted Seed Grow-Up Program, which has been designed to allow producers to a reduced risk environment in which they can begin incorporating native seed into their operations. Next, we're going to be talking about our Foundation Seed Program, which has been assisting producers to procure native seed since 2022. Next, we'll talk about some of our outreach events that the NDA has been hosting throughout the year and some upcoming opportunities to connect with the NDA as well. And last, we're going to cover our Source ID certification program very briefly, which acts as a sort of quality assurance for the entire industry. So like I just mentioned, the Contracted Grow-Up Program is our newest offering to producers in Nevada. To give you a brief overview of the program, producers can apply to be admitted into the program. The NDA will review those applications and select the best ones to move forward with. The NDA will provide seed to the producer in a guaranteed payment on a flat per acre basis in exchange for all of the harvested seed for up to 3 years during the contract. Now, after the contract has been fulfilled, the remaining plant material can be used for future production. And it's our plan to open up that application period during the summertime in time for fall planting once a year. The main goal for this program was really to remove as many barriers as we could that were preventing producers from including native seed production in other operations. Some of the largest issues that are currently affecting the industry are really just a lack of appropriate seed stock, a lack of practical production knowledge on many species, as well as drastic swings in demand for seed, which is driven by varying degrees of wildfire intensity as well as precipitation. Now, combating the lack of appropriate seed stock has been pretty challenging, even for me. Sure enough, I can go get a couple of pounds of Great Basin wild rye with very little issue, but the problem really becomes whether or not that seed would be compatible from the source it was originally collected to the production area that it will be increased in. And if someone who is as well versed in sourcing native seed as me is having trouble, that situation is even more dire for a brand new producer. The Contracted Seed Grow-Up Program combats this by providing all producers with appropriate seed at no cost and placing the burden of sourcing the seed onto the NDA employees so that the new producers can focus on their own operations and should feel ensured that the seed that we selected will be appropriate for their production area. As an industry, we have some information regarding growth requirements on many of our species, and while this is a great place to start, there's not as much practical knowledge when it comes to actually trying to produce these native plants for profit, especially when you consider Nevada. Most of the information that we currently have belongs to areas that are much less intense of environments as Nevada is. The NDA is working to reduce this risk in 2 ways. The first being that we're going to provide what knowledge that is available to producers, and the other way is by gathering production data from our current producers that are involved with our programs to help future producers be able to grow these species armed with more relevant information. This long-term goal should pay dividends in the future as our knowledge base continues to grow. Now, perhaps the most cited reason why producers are not really interested in incorporating natives into their operations is the drastic swings in demand for seed year after year. It can be enticing to hear about some species going for upwards of $80 a pound, only to come to find out that it may be worth up to half as much that following year. So to remove this consideration, the NDA has attempted to stabilize the shifting demand by offering payments on a flat per acre basis and to pay out regardless of success of the harvest. This completely removes the need to worry about the shifting demand and gives producers a chance to better understand the production process before fully committing their operations to native seed production. We're really excited to see how this program is able to grow and encourage development within the industry, and we hope that it can provide a more stable environment for producers to get started. All right, moving on. Next up, we have the Foundation Seed Program. Now, this is going to seem pretty similar to the contracted grow out program that I just talked about, but there's a few key differences here that set these two programs apart. So we do hold two open application periods during the year, once in the spring and once in the fall. Currently, we are in the middle of the fall application period right now, where producers may apply to receive seed at no cost. The producer will then sow, manage, and harvest and clean the seed. The NDA will receive a very small portion of that first harvest back, typically no more than 2 times the amount of seed that was awarded. And then the remainder of that harvest can either be sold or used by the producer for future restoration projects. Now, you will notice that there is not any guaranteed payment from the NDA included in this program. Instead, producers will need to find their own buyer or a project to utilize their seeds. As you can see, there's a few distinct advantages to each program. The contracted seed grow-out program affords producers the peace of mind that they're not going to have to worry about fluctuating seed prices, whereas the Foundation Seed Program allows for a lot more flexibility in time frames, species selection, production practices, and ultimately who you market your seed to. I would recommend to folks that are already involved in traditional crops in their operations, but are looking to begin incorporating native seed production into their farm to the contracted seed grow-out program. And to those folks that are already in the process of incorporating native seed production and maybe just need a little bit of supplemental seed, or to those that have a very small production area, think 1 to 2 or 3 acres, I would recommend them to the Foundation Seed Program. Now onto some of the accessory programs at the NDA. First off, we have our outreach program. The outreach that the NDA performs is absolutely critical to the success of our programs. Those of you that are producers in Nevada know just how tight-knit those communities can be and just how important word of mouth definitely is. Every time I send off an email that advertises our programs, it might reach the eyes of around 200-ish people. But just with some of the presentations and other outreach events that we perform over the years, we've been able to spread that message to many times the amount of individuals, each of which are all members of their own regional communities where that message will be spread even further and so on and so forth. And all that really to say is that it is important, just how important these face-to-face interactions really are in the agricultural community. Just to highlight some of the events that we hold, we, of course, partner up with the Nevada Native Seed Partnership every year to bring you the Native Seed Forum. But we also have begun to introduce what we've been calling our Native Seed Roadshow events as well. And the intent behind these events is to provide a much more focused experience that is designed to highlight one key aspect of the native seed industry, such as seed production via some of our nursery tours, or habitat restoration via some of our post-wildfire rehabilitation tours. We have also made it a goal to serve more of Nevada by attempting to host these events across the entire state instead of just hosting them in, Fallon, Reno, Winnemucca. We need producers all over the state to be producing in the correct seed zones that we need. So we need to be reaching those areas as well. It only makes sense that we try and get out there. Now, unfortunately, several of our roadshows didn't pan out this year, but that's okay. We'll be back at it again next year with a whole host of new locations and topics. So be on the lookout for more information on those coming in the next few months. And so to round out my presentation this year, let's go ahead and take a look at our Source ID certification program. And to outline it simply, seed collectors and producers can elect to have their seed certified by applying for Source ID certification by the NDA. This really just entails a trained NDA employee, usually me, to travel to the collection site or production site to confirm species presence. after which the collector or producer can order tags that should be attached to each bag of seed. Each tag has relevant information on the lot so that seed can easily be identifiable to the users and so that relevant information can be tracked across purchases and additional successions. This quality assurance that a seed buyer gets by having the seed certified is crucial for collectors and producers to keep in mind, as many users of seed will not accept seed that does not come with a source ID tag. However, it is not a requirement. I would like to point out that we can also source ID certified seed that is being produced in an agricultural setting as long as no genetic manipulation has occurred, meaning that certain traits were not selected for during the original wildling collection or thereafter. There are some options if you wish to undergo some genetic manipulation of that seed stock, but if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and reach out to myself or Russ. All right, so that's going to just about do it for my presentation today. I can go ahead and take a few questions right now, or do remember that we do have the roundtable discussion portion after all the presenters have finished. Go ahead.
Stephen, do your contracts have a performance time schedule? For instance, how many years or how soon do you have to? It varies by species or?
Yeah, so the question was for the contracted seed grow out program, are there any certain timetables? And typically our contracts up until this point have lasted 3 years, although that can be species dependent as well as funding dependent as well. Answer your question? Cool. Anyone else? Anyone from online, Russ?
Nothing yet, Stephen.
Alrighty. Okay. Alrighty, well, if there are no further questions, then we're going to go ahead and move on to our next speakers. I would like to go ahead and introduce Lindsay Langsdale from Reno Food Systems, and she's going to go ahead and talk a little bit about their urban farming operations here in Reno and their experience with growing native seeds. Go ahead and get her presentation up, and then I'll hand it on over. There we go. Thanks so much, Lindsay.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay Langsdale, and I'm the Executive Director and the Farm Manager at Reno Food Systems. We are a 5-acre nonprofit urban farm in West Reno. Raise your hand if you've been out to visit us before. 1. All right, great. A new crowd. That's good. Okay, so this is our mission statement. We're farmers, mentors, and advocates, stewarding lands and sharing food and resources for the well-being of our Earth's community and future generations. This is our location right here. So you'll see, walking away from the camera, sorry, we have Karen and Mayberry right there. And we're on the north 5 acres right there. So now that you see the map, can you guys picture this spot? Some of you? Okay. So this is a really special piece of property right here. Traditional lands of Washoe Northern Paiute and a ranch for the past few generations. So it's what was the Collin Ranch for many years. And that stretched from where that Rayleigh's is on Hunter Lake all the way to the foothills to the river. It was a 6,000 acre ranch, huge ranch that took up like that whole part of town. And slowly over the years has been sold off and developed through the 80s and 90s. And so if anybody's lived here before the 80s and 90s, you might remember what that part of town looked like when it was a ranch. So in the early 90s, the last owner of that ranch, her name was Betsy Collin Donnelly. She donated the last 30 acres to the county to preserve that as agricultural land. So that's the 30 acres right there, and the county owns it and they operate it as a regional park, but it has to remain agricultural. So that's a very special thing to have done, especially in our community. We're not really an ag community. So as you've seen over the years, most of our historic ag lands have been developed, turned into warehouses, industrial zones. They're mostly gone. So to have this here was a special thing that Betsy did for the community, and we're very privileged and honored to be able to carry on that legacy of agriculture on this acreage. So that was it in 2018. We presented this idea to build a community farm to the county in 2018, and they accepted our idea and leased us the north 5 acres of about a 20-acre patch that's still the pasture. So it was looking like this, lots of annual and perennial grasses that cows grazed on, lots of weeds, and the aim was to turn this into annual vegetable crops, row crops, perennial plants, native plants. So the picture of me standing there with the walk behind rototiller is not part of this, but that's right there is where we started, trying to transition this from a pasture to row crops. So that was 2018. So here's 2020. A couple of years later, you can see the row crops have been put in the beginning of some of our perennial plant areas, our farm stand right there. This is Mayberry, so we're right on a busy street. We have a roadside farm stand where people come and buy vegetables. And then this is last year, so 2024, we've added a hoop house, drying shed, a walk-in refrigerator, chickens. So every year we expand a little bit more. As a nonprofit, we do lots of different programming. So our first program, we call it the Land Stewardship Program. So that's us taking care of that land, being good stewards to the land, using organic, sustainable, regenerative practices to steward this property. So some of the hallmarks of regenerative agriculture: keeping a living root in the soil all year, keeping the soil covered and protected, using cover crops, which we procure from Comstock Seed, covering the soil with mulches, incorporating livestock into our operations. We do animal husbandry, so we incorporate our animals as tillers of the land, so we can do more no-till practices and let the animals go through and prep the soil for us, fertilize the soil for us. They also are really fun. And as an urban agricultural project, you really want to have buy-in from your neighborhood. So the animals really are our ambassadors to the neighborhood. We've had goats, those 2 cuties right there. That was when they were babies. They're big now, Oliver and June. We have bees. We have about 25 chickens, 2 roosters, 3 geese. And we've had pigs and piglets. We've had sheep. So that's a fun part of the farm. We do our annual crop production. So that's about 2 acres of the 5 acres. We do our annual crops. We grow about 30 different varieties. And that's everything you'd see at a farmer's market. So tomatoes, cucumbers, all kinds of leafy greens, root crops. That's a hard thing to do. A ton of different varieties like that. It makes the labor really intense. But because we have a farm stand and we're asking people to come to our farm, we have to have a wide variety of things to attract customers. So it's a big project to do that many varieties. We also donate about 1/3 to 1/2 of everything that we grow. So we want a wide variety of food going out into the community. We have our food forest and heritage orchard. So right next to our 5 acres, there's about a 1-acre orchard that has some historic fruit trees from the ranch. And it has Nevada's biggest Osage orange tree, which is really exciting, on the Nevada Big Tree list. So we adopted that orchard last year with funding from the Nevada Division of Forestry. And now we have a beautiful orchard with lots of shade that we can use for our workshops. And we also allow other community partners to use that space as an outdoor classroom to hold meetings and kids camps and different stuff like that. On the 5 acres itself, we probably have 100 different fruit trees, maybe 12 different varieties of fruit trees, hundreds of perennial plants, pollinator plants, native plants, and I'll list off, let's see, the native plants we have. We grow yarrow, 4 different kinds of penstemon, tufted hairgrass, Hooker's evening primrose, blanket flower, fernbush, basin wild rye, blue flax, Apache plume, showy milkweed, narrow leaf milkweed, rabbit brush, sagebrush, willow, buffalo berry, currants, New Mexico privet, serviceberry, banana yucca, glow mallow, and we will be doing squirrel tail here pretty soon. We have a nursery on site, so we grow annual vegetable crops for gardeners. We grow those native plants that I just listed, fruit trees and shrubs, and we sell those plants to the community through the farm stand. We grow those plants in the field, and then we also donate a big chunk of those plants to school and community gardens. We have our farm stand, so that's April through November, every Sunday from 3 to 7. So folks can come through. We usually have about 200 people every Sunday coming through. And so you can buy produce. We do U-Picks where folks can walk around the field, pick their own berries. We just did a full field U-Pick. At the end of every season, we do that. So I give every customer an empty bag and say, you guys get to do the work today. See ya when I see ya. And they go out into the field and kind of glean the field at the end of the season. We do a lot of activities on Sundays for families and for kids. Part of our mission is to make food really accessible to everybody, so our prices are pretty low. We also accept SNAP benefits, WIC vouchers, senior farmers market coupons, and double bucks. So anybody that needs food can come through and get it. All right, so that's the land stewardship program. Second program is the food justice program. And we've done that from the beginning, but we really kicked that into high gear in 2020 when we learned that Nevada had the highest rates of child food insecurity in the country, tied with Louisiana. So 32.3 of our kiddos that year were experiencing food insecurity. And that was a statistic that we couldn't really ignore. So we started to work with more organizations starting then, especially organizations supporting kids and families. And we do that a few different ways. So our Food for All initiative is us donating a third to a half of everything we grow. So that's the produce and the plants. And that goes out to 27 different partners. So it goes to the Eddy House, Women's and Children's Center, Veterans Guest House, Reno Housing Authority, free pantries, lots of different places. We have Together We Thrive initiative. So that's one of our staff, Melissa. She's our chef, and she manages a group of volunteers every Thursday. They get together at the Reno Buddhist Center, and they take produce that we've grown, plus produce from other growers, and they cook meals and then distribute those hot meals to folks who need the meal rather than just the produce. We have Serving Our Seniors program. That's in partnership with the city of Reno. Aiming to increase food security among low-income seniors specifically. So we do that through workshops about nutrition, education, kind of how to stay healthy as a senior through dietary practices. We distribute the produce to low-income senior residences, and then we manage the Paradise Park Community Garden in Sparks, and we renovated that to be a senior-friendly garden. So it's all raised beds. There's the access is ADA compliant, and we do lots of programming in that garden for seniors specifically to help with engagement and isolation that seniors face a lot of times. We have young interns that will go to neighboring low-income senior residences and escort the seniors to the garden to participate in the activities. So that's very fun if you've ever been to Paradise Park. It's kind of by the drive-in movie theater between Reno and Sparks. And we have our Healthy Corner Store initiative in partnership with Northern Nevada Public Health. We provide our produce to 3 different corner stores in food desert neighborhoods, trying to get some healthy options in those stores. Okay, now we have the education program. At this point in time, we have about 1,000 volunteers on our list, and we offer volunteer days almost every day of the week. We would not be able to do what we do with the tiny staff that we have if we didn't have the volunteers. And we view volunteers not just as free labor, but opportunities to teach people about agriculture, about our food system. And they have a lot of fun. Also, we get individual volunteers, we get corporate volunteers, we get school groups. I had a group of frat boys the other day. That was fun. Then we work with DFI, which I think we'll see this afternoon. Are we going to see DFI? We'll be near it. So that's Desert Farming Initiative at UNR. They have a farmer apprenticeship program. So we act as one of the host sites for their apprentices. So their apprentice can come to our farm. We get a free day, labor free for that day. And they've learned a new perspective on ag by being at the farm. We take interns from UNR, from high schools. We have many different types of interns. And we hire young beginning farmers who are interested in a career in ag, but don't necessarily want to live in a rural setting, so they can come and learn with us. We do lots of tours. I probably do 50 tours a year. And we do lots of policy and advocacy work. So I've talked to all of our senators, legislators. We've done legislative tours. We have supported the Farm Bill. We provide testimony on different bills that have to do with ag and our food system. And then we've worked with lots of cute kids from FFA and 4-H who have raised animals with us at the farm. These geese are the most prize-winning geese. All their ribbons from the last poultry show that these young women took them to. And then our last program is called the Arts and Healing Program. So those of us who are lucky enough to work at the farm recognize that it's a place for creativity and healing and wellness, and we want to be able to share that feeling with the community. So we've added some fun arts programming. We've done plein air, painting in the field, eco drawing for kids, movement classes, meditation classes. And then we partner with different therapeutic organizations like Quest Counseling, Crossroads, New Dawn, and provided the farm as a place where these groups can bring their kind of group therapy setting and do it in the farm instead of in a sterile office environment. And then those folks can also either volunteer with us, they can go pick flowers, they can bring kids and pick tomatoes, whatever it is that might better their day or their experience, we can offer at the farm. Okay, that's our programming. So just some impacts from last year. Last year, we provided about 4,000 hot meals to the community. 658 seedlings went to school and community gardens. We worked with 27 different partners to strengthen food security in our community. Volunteers donated about 2,000 hours to this work. We offered 43 free workshops educating more than 500 people and donated over 6,000 pounds of produce to our partners. All right, vision for the future. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. So from this picture, you can see the 5 acres that I've talked about, and then you can see the 15-acre pasture in the back. So as of May, we are now leasing that 15 acres as well. So we've gone from 5 acres to 20 acres overnight. And we're really excited about launching a regenerative grazing demonstration project in this back field. So for the last many, many years, there's been cattle on this property. I'm sure you've seen the cows if you've been in the neighborhood. And the pasture really hasn't had an opportunity to rest in the last at least 10 years. There's been cows on there. And the ranchers usually bring quite a number of cows, and they leave them there for quite a long time through the winter when the forage is really low. So the pasture's been overgrazed and it's been compacted and it's been eroded in certain areas, and the irrigation ditches have been trampled. So the pasture isn't in the best shape right now. And I've been watching this happen over the years. And as I've said, this is such a special piece of property that I wanted to really highlight that and do that justice. Also, this is irrigated by precious Truckee River water that's diverted off the river. It's flood irrigated, goes back into the river. So whatever happens on this field really affects the health of the water in the river. And I wanted to present a project that could really improve the ecosystem here and the health of the water. So the lease came up for negotiation in the spring, and we presented this idea to the county, and they gave us the lease. So we're going to do this project anytime now. We're just putting together the plan right now, and we're growing native seed out here. We're going to do regenerative grazing, so rotational grazing, allowing the pasture to rest. We're going to work with more 4-H kids to have larger animals out there. So here you can see an aerial shot. So the blue line, that's the 5 acres that we have had for the last 8 years. And the pink is the 15 that we just started to lease. The yellow is the heritage orchard I talked about. And then that green is a landscaped park on the corner that you can walk through, and Alum Creek goes through there and then down to the river. That's just conventional grazing, regenerative grazing, kind of our vision for the future right there. All right, and then to what we're supposed to be talking about, native seeds. So earlier this year, Stephen and I got together and started a globe mallow growing project. So that's through the Foundation Seed Program that he was describing earlier. So we got some globe mallow and have done some trials. So some of it we planted in our hoop house to grow transplants to then put into the field. And then I did a section of direct seeding to see how that went. The transplanted section, I probably got 90% success rate. The direct seed section, I got 0 success rate on that. So we will be doing the transplants moving forward, but we have a really nice stand of globe mallow right now. We get lots of compliments on this. It's really beautiful, and people who visit the farm are always asking what it is. One problem we came up against is we do a You Pick flower bouquet every Sunday. So people can walk the farm and pick flowers, $7, you get a beautiful bouquet. And people kept coming up to me with the globe mallow in their bouquets. I go, shoot, didn't see that coming. So I put some signs out about the project and why the globe mallow is there. And I see fewer globe mallow in the bouquets, but people can't help themselves. So we might need to fence it off or something like that for the future. But this fall, we've been collecting seed, and it's going really well. It's a project the volunteers have enjoyed, the seed collecting piece. So we will carry on with this. That's one of the seedling transplants we put in. And yeah, they do really well as a transplant. And then we will be doing bottlebrush squirrel tail using the NDA contracted seed grow out program. So the other program Stephen talked about. And this is going to go into a 4-acre strip in that back 15 acres that I was talking about. So it's a strip that kind of goes through the middle of that pasture that isn't flood irrigated. So you can see there's lots of native rabbit brush already in this area. So we're going to put the squirrel tail there and give that a go. I just signed the contract a couple of days ago, so we haven't started it yet. So I'll have to come back and let you know how that went. That's it. All right. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm with the Nevada Native Plant Society.
Mhm.
You mentioned you sell seedlings of native
Mhm.
plants. How can we share that information with our friends and members through our social media and things? Because we are always being asked, where do we get natives from?
Okay. I'll get your contact information. And then when we start to have our sales again, so we won't have, we're closed now for the season, so we'll start back up in April. Then I can get in contact with you and we can share the advertisements, and I'll let you know. Yeah. Mhm. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 50-foot rows. 5 50-foot rows.
And also with your native plant sales, do you sell any of the milk? So
comment on the glow mallow. We used to harvest it down in Gila, Washington, Arizona.
Mhm.
And it was rather invasive successfully. For us collecting it, it was wonderful seed.
Mhm.
But it was growing on abandoned farmlands.
Okay.
And most of the families that lived in that area had a big problem with pink eye in children because they were exposed to the stellate pubescence by playing in the fields that were full
Wow.
of glow mallow. And so when we came by to want to collect the seed, they were happy to be involved. To go away. And two other caveats on resting fields.
Mhm.
We knew that working with the Walker Basin Conservancy, that the fields had been in ag so long that the soils were literally unrecognizable to native plants.
Mm.
And one thing being high in nutrient content from growing alfalfa all those years. And so we witnessed them patiently trying to literally denutrify the soils
Mhm.
to grow native plants on them.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I think people overemphasize improving a soil for a native that evolved on poor soil.
Mm.
And so there's a very much of a nuance and a balance there.
Mhm.
And likewise, I was up to Fly Ranch for the post-burner party this year. And resting in their fields of all of their land brought on a monstrous nightmare with knapweed,
Mm.
which they're going to be dealing with for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good luck with those fields.
After that. Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. Have you experienced a favoritism towards certain varieties of vegetables? Are you sorting out to yourselves what works there and what doesn't work there?
Mhm. Yeah, we try to get feedback from both our customers and the partners that we work with. So like we grow an extreme amount of tomatillos. They grow really, really well. They don't sell very well at the farm stand, but the Women's and Children's Center will take hundreds of pounds of tomatillos a week and are really appreciative of them. We try to do an uncommon vegetable of the week. So we'll sneak in interesting stuff that we're interested in, but in order to get people to care about it, we really have to do a lot of education and provide recipes and steps as to how you would use it. So I think our biggest seller are carrots at the farm, tomatoes, of course, kale, Napa cabbage is a big one that I was a little bit surprised about. It's hard for us to grow kind of standard cabbage. I've given up at this point. We can do Napa cabbage really well. So that's what I talk about. Like at the farm stand, I'm talking the whole time, trying to explain. When people ask, do you have Brussels sprouts? Do you have broccoli? Do you have cauliflower? Do you have lettuce? And I say, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do any of that. And then explain why, and then point them in the direction of the Asian greens that we can grow really well. So it's a ton of education to get that squared away. I want to talk to you more about this pink eye thing. I'm really curious now. Should I not have kids be collecting that seed? I'll talk to you later about this pink eye and the globe mallow. We do not. We have aphids, and they're super manageable as long as our plants are healthy. We've had years where we've struggled more with the soil health, and the plants then aren't as healthy, and then the aphids then aren't terrible. Squash bugs are probably our biggest ones. That's where the volunteers come into play and manually remove squash bugs from a field of squash. We had a problem with grasshoppers for the very first time this year, and that was pretty destructive. And we have to figure out what to do about that. That's the first time it's happened. There's always been grasshoppers in the early summer, but they have not destroyed things in the past. This year they destroyed a large amount of things. Those are the biggest ones. Yeah.
Drawing scaling on the aphids and the mites and water spray, simply if they hit the mud, they're toast.
Mhm.
And for us, that worked really well for our broccoli and later summer vegetables that started to get infested.
Mhm.
We just started a regular program of spraying them
Mhm.
with water.
Yeah, we do a soap spray. Yeah. Yeah, we do a pretty simple soap spray for the aphids. That works. Any other questions?
Now, Lincoln, what would you attribute the the major factor being the low germination or the zero germination of your desert globe almond,
Mhm.
side your direct seeding.
Mhm.
What worked in hoop house or in greenhouse to spur those seedlings to develop, but not in situ outside?
You probably had to do a lot with the weed pressure. So that area where let's see. So this picture, see that grass right there? This becomes a carpet of grass in this particular area. So I think that grass took out the seeds. Versus when we did the transplants, the grass still came in. You can see it coming in here. But the transplant had a head start. So at one stage, this picture is after a volunteer spent 4 days weeding this area. This was just a carpet of grass. But the globe mallow was doing fine in it because it was established. I have a very dedicated 76-year-old volunteer who wears knee pads and you don't see her for hours, and she pulled all that grass out.
You know, like the
I know. So that's the one obvious reason. So we might try it again in a different area that has less weed pressure to see if something else happens. But I think it's got to be something else because really zero germinated. So we'll probably try it again, but it was just as easy to do the transplants. Really, we have a whole hoop house of seedlings and a hoop house manager. So I gave him the seed. I said, I need this mini globe mallow. He did it. And we had volunteers transplant them. So with our volunteer labor force, it's really not that much more work to do the transplants. But we'll keep doing more experiments to see.
You know, I have a lot of seed in the ground, it never comes up.
Mhm.
Years later, when you're on some of the crop, it does come up.
Yeah.
And that means we call that a weed.
Do you have like a newsletter or socials that people can follow you?
Great question. So we have, let's see, I think I got rid of that slide. I did. Reno Food Systems. We have Instagram, Facebook, and then if you go to our website, you can sign up for a weekly newsletter. The newsletter has everything that we're up to. We accept donations as a nonprofit, so we're primarily grant funded. We make income from grants, individual donations, corporate sponsors, and farm product sales.
Any online question?
Nothing online for you, Lindsay.
Okay.
I have one more question though, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So with the expansion of the farm currently and the additional 15 acres into the pasture,
Mhm.
the plan is to dedicate about a third of that to squirrel tail
Mhm.
production with the spring planting upcoming or fall planting.
Spring coming, spring planting, hopefully. I'll leave it to seed.
Okay.
Yeah, we initially started to talk about fall, but the seed has been hard to come by. So we'll do it in the spring and see how it goes.
What are the plans for the ground there for the planting? Yeah.
Go
Since it's been in pasture for the last 10 or so years, are you planning on doing any sort of pre-ground work out there to ensure that you've got a stable
Mhm.
soil bed to work with?
Mhm. So this section doesn't have any of the pasture grass. You can kind of see the line right here. This is like hard to describe the topography. It kind of acts like a high point. So the flood irrigation comes out and then it goes this way. But it's actually low. Like it's an old wash. It's a bit strange. So the flood irrigation comes from over here and it saturates this whole pasture and then the pasture on this side. And it doesn't go here. So there's no established pasture grass in this spot. So that's why we chose that spot. So what's here currently is the rabbit brush and then this weed, this grassy weed right there. So we already started with volunteers. There was also a bunch of old abandoned barbed wire in this section. And we worked with Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful Community Cleanup, and they sent us a bunch of volunteers who spent hours like detangling this wire from the old bushes. So we got that out of there. We need to clean up some rocks, There's quite a bit of rocks that will kind of get in the way for the seeding. So we're going to do that. And then depending on when we get the seed and when we're going to do it, we'll kind of clear out the weedy grass. I hope to leave most of the rabbit brush there. But the topography is interesting. It's a little steep on some of the sides. It kind of rolls. So we're probably going to have to hand seed it. We have a few cedars that might work for some of the flatter areas, like this section right in here. We plan to do outreach and have a bunch of volunteers work with us to do this project. And it's not something we've done in the past, so I really think our volunteers are going to be excited about participating in this.
So we failed because the ground wasn't clean enough.
Okay.
Everything that came up with it contaminated the crop after the first year we were done.
Okay.
And then the commercial varieties that are available are mostly, well, they're all non-native. Well, they aren't. But the state native, which is called Tojam, is a rather robust form. And I know that Beth Ledger is working on a varietal for Central Nevada that's more in tune to the structural forms you find, which are leaner, shorter, smaller plants.
Mhm.
But there was a variety years ago called Road Chris developed, and it was a shorter statured variety for roadside work. But farmers, everybody stopped growing it because that weed contamination was big. Whereas the non-native varieties that have been engineered and built up were nice tall varieties where you could mitigate weeds with cultivation, harvest a clean crop on them. In the end, when I couldn't find road crest anymore, well, when you were seeing the lots that were coming in, they were full of cheatgrass.
Okay.
Which just killed the idea. So we're back to square one on that.
Okay. Do you know what kind we're gonna get?
It's going to be a source ID, non-varietal.
Yeah, that's much better than, for us anyway, than putting in the toe jam.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
are beets. And same goes for blue bunch wheat across Central Nevada.
Yeah.
The varieties from the north are huge.
Okay.
The stuff down here is lean, earlier season, earlier flowering, leaf blades, more arid. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's kind of our overall goal with these programs is to not necessarily have varietal or varieties of these species and to get more natural products, source ID
Okay.
products. Yeah.
Okay. I've had some small conversations with folks who have done this before, but I plan before we really launch it to talk to some other people who have done a similar site to really get that prep handled in the best way we can. So I have a few contacts, but if anybody has any experience with it or knows somebody who has done it, I'd like to know about that so I can chat with them.
Yeah, I think you're probably pointing in the right direction.
Great.
Question?
All right.
All right.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All righty, everyone. Now then, we're going to be moving right along. Up next, we're going to invite Corey King from the Nevada Division of Forestry. Today's going to be talking to you about the state tree nurseries located here in Washoe Valley, as well as down in Las Vegas, and some of the projects that they have going on there. Now, originally, Corey was going to be here in person today, but it sounded like he had a little bit of an emergency on the nursery today. He's going to be presenting virtually. So Corey, if you can just give me a second here to get everything set up, and then I'll go ahead and give you a thumbs up whenever you're clear to go. Does that sound good, Corey?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All righty. All righty. So we're going to go ahead and go to our next presenter then. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and welcome up Emma Wynn from the Nevada Native Plant Society up to the podium. Emma will be speaking a little bit about on the society's history, as well as some of their efforts in spreading general awareness about the importance of native plants within Nevada. So go ahead and pull their presentation up and we'll get going. All right, there we go. Thanks so much, Emma.
Okay. Thank you. My name's Emma Wynn and I'm currently president of the Nevada Native Plant Society. I joined the society as soon as I came to Nevada because I've always been fascinated in plants. We are not in the business of producing seed. We are in the business of trying to help people to understand how important our native plants are to healthy ecosystems, to develop awareness and stimulate interest in our plants and their preservation, so that they are going to be looking for plants and seeds to maybe put in their yards and gardens for individual members, and maybe some of our other members could be involved in some of your programs. And a lot of our members are partners. Sadly, some of them can't be here today because of the federal shutdown. So we were established in 1975, and I'm not going to dwell on our history, but since we've survived 50 years, I just wanted to mention it and also talk about how our founder, Margaret Williamson, came into native plants, because she was a teacher. She wasn't a botanist or plant professional, but she was fascinated by gardening. And her passion for gardening led her to join all sorts of groups, including the Alpine Society. And through these organizations, she met fellow gardeners. And at some point, she was reading the back issues of the quarterly bulletin of the Alpine Garden Society of Great Britain. And she read some articles by H. Dwight Ripley and his friend, Rupert Barnaby. And if you're a taxonomist, that name will mean something to you, because he worked with Intermountain Flora and has been involved in botany here. But the quote from her, as Margaret said, these articles, they had a big deal. So she quoted, "It was through the accounts of Rupert Barnaby's travels with Dwight Ripley, plant hunting in the Great Basin," written for the Alpine Garden Society Bulletin of Great Britain, "that I became aware of our fascinating native plants. Dwight Ripley described these plants so vividly, and Rupert Barnaby photographed them with such clarity, that I felt I had to see them for myself and attempt to establish them in my garden. Had it not be for them, we might be living in a condominium and growing geraniums in pots on the balcony, instead of growing native plants on a rocky hillside. And if it hadn't been for them, we might not have had the Nevada Native Plant Society, or not one that's established for 50 years. And she wanted right from the beginning. So this is Margaret. This is she taught 4th grade in one of the local schools around here. And in fact, one of our members, when he joined, had a lot of trouble calling her Margaret. He kept calling her Mrs. Williams, because she had been his 4th grade teacher. But right from the beginning, she wanted to bring together a diverse group of people to join the society. She wanted to stimulate awareness and interest, because we can be here, and people, especially incomers like myself, so many people think, well, it's sagebrush, there's nothing there, it's just grey. But we are the driest state in the nation, but we're still up in the top 10 for floral diversity. You might have to get down on your belly to see them. Our belly plants are fabulous. But so right from the beginning, we have been trying to reach out to people who are interested in plants, whether they want to be gardeners, hikers, or just like plants and pretty flowers generally, so that we can teach them more about natives and why natives are so important. And this is the letter they sent out in 1975 for the original first meeting, to try and see how many people would come. And you might recognize some names on there. And let me see, sorry, I got my notes out of order. Some names on there, including, say, out a little bit, but Arnold Team, Jerry, who was one of our founder members, a past president and still a member. And again, if you have anything to do with plant taxonomy, you will know about Jerry, Arnold Team. So the very first meeting was held on 17th of April, 1975. 40 people attended. The first field trip was May 3rd, and the first newsletter was also published in May. It did start as the Northern Nevada Native Plant Society, but in the year 2002, the name changed to the Nevada Native Plant Society, when members of the former Mojave Native Plant Society joined us. So we are definitely the Nevada Native Plant Society. One of the things right from the beginning was meetings. We have meetings. We have 7 meetings a year in the Reno area. The Southern group, through COVID and then loss of one of their leaders and one of their meeting places, kind of went into a bit of a tailspin. But the herbarium that used to be at the university in Vegas is now at the College of Southern Nevada, and they have a new curator, Marcus Hooker, who is doing a lot of work to revive. So they are having in-person meetings down there. We have now combined our meetings, and so tonight is our last meeting of the year, and Tiffany Piera. who is one of our members. She works for DRI down there, down south, and again has been involved actually, I think, in seed. Oh, she illustrated the book helped illustrate the book about seedlings down south for restoration plants down south. I've forgotten its name. But anyway, it's to do with seedlings for restoration, and they've got these amazing photographs, but they've also got some of her botanical illustrations for things that were difficult to photograph. So it's cool. And she's talking about the art of science tonight, and we will be live in the room 300 in the Fleischmann Agriculture Center here, and we also do meetings on Zoom. So meetings were one of the things right from the beginning. Okay, what am I doing? I'm not hitting next. Didn't hit it right place, sorry. Field trips. It's a photograph from one of the early field trips. Certainly field trips. Oh, in the north. I must have hit. How do I stop it going on? Let's see. It has. Oh, here we are. So this is a field trip from 1982. And field trips is definitely a great way of reaching out to hikers. We've brought in a lot of new members up in certainly northern Nevada this year through our field trips, because we have hikers and then we have friends, and people come in and then they're just amazed often by what we find. You know, you go onto even if it's a bad year, and it wasn't a brilliant year this year, you find stuff. You find interesting stuff. And sometimes, you know, it takes us a while to get away from the parking lot because we keep finding all these interesting little things along the way. This is one we did a couple of years ago. If you are not familiar with the Lower Thomas Creek Trail, okay, keep doing it wrong. That is a fabulous place. The Arrow Creek Open Space is a fabulous place in the spring, in March, April, May, because it has all those little spring flowers. There are thousands of the Beckwith's violet there and all sorts of other stuff. That was one of our earliest ones last year. This year they had a very special one down south because Jeanette, oh, sorry. Okay, go back. They had a very special one down south to the Nevada National Security Site, previously the test site. Jeanette Hannon, who is one of our members, was able to arrange that because she's done work there. It's difficult to arrange. You have to jump through all sorts of hoops. You're not allowed to take photos. She was the only one allowed to take photos, but they were able to go there and have a field trip there. I know Marcus was involved with another field trip. Again, gradually they're building up. One of our issues is sometimes trying to find people to lead, volunteers to lead. People are worried. I don't know all the plants. Doesn't matter, because we often have to get together as a group to try and identify stuff. It's opening eyes. Newsletters. I know. I'm not going to get it solved, am I? Sorry. Newsletters. So they used to produce, 9 a year starting. We're now down to 6 a year. This year, because it's our 50th anniversary, we've been featuring interviews with some of our members. We have conservation news, we have book reviews, we have field trips, we have a whole lot of fun stuff. And they are available on our website. If you go to publications, we put them up right away. You can read some of our newsletters. So you can find interviews with Jim Moorfield, Jan Nacklinger, Arnold Jerry Team, as well as John Weiser, who is a fabulous gardener. I'm going to show his garden. He is great for our outreach regarding incorporating natives into garden into your own garden. And then who else have we had? Oh yes, Rose Strickland, who in 1976 was our conservation officer. She's currently our conservation officer again. She's brilliant. Outreach, we do a lot of outreach. We do things like Earth Days, we May Arboretum, when we're invited, we'll come and do outreach, because that is a great way of meeting the general public and people who might just have passing. And we often work with the museum, the Natural History Museum at UNR. So we have bees and things like that. And even if people won't come to look at the plants initially, they'll look at the bees. And if they're interested in the bees and the other insects, then we can explain how they need the native plants to support those pollinators, how a zinnia might attract an adult butterfly, but it's not going to do anything for most larval forms. So, and we have some games and things like that we play. Yes, outreach is definitely something we're interested in. We also have a couple of publications that we've put out. Unfortunately, the wildflowers of the northern Coal Desert is out of print at the moment, but we were excited to be able to print the ID guide, this wildflowers of the foothill regions of northeastern Nevada. Mary Winters was one of our members. She taught classes over in Elko. When she passed away, she gave us the chance to do one publication of her book. She just used to do small ones. So we have published that. And again, it gives people a chance to, if you're a hiker, a walker, to maybe put names to some of these plants you're seeing, to maybe start to get more interested in them. And then our members, also many of our members, so Larry Lodwick, who is down in Ash Meadows, has put out a book. He also does outreach down there. He's great. He spent a lot of time there. We're also excited about a book, okay, let's, if I do that, will it not go? That was published earlier this year by Brit, Nevada Vascular Plants. It's the first checklist of our state's botanical diversity. And every single plant listed there has a voucher in a herbaria somewhere in the country, most of them at UNR Reno. This is basically Jerry's life's work, and Jan has worked with him, and this is a fabulous book. And I did bring examples if people want to see them. This one is actually not aimed at general public. This is much more for other people, but I use it because I do something called Plant of the Week. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Merchandise. We do have some merchandise, limited. I actually sold a book because I was wearing a t-shirt and someone asked me about the Nevada Native Plant Society. And actually I was depositing checks and I sold one of the Mary Winters books to the cashier after we talked about it a little bit, and other places. So yeah, it's an advertisement. Native plants, it's beginning to establish the concept of native plants rather than any old plant. And our rulers have gone all over the place. For some reason, the people out east love them. I keep sending, one time I sent 25 rulers out there. Someone must have been giving them out as gifts. And calendars, we produce calendars every year. And we do a little photographic contest. So we put information out asking for our friends and members to submit photographs from around the state. And then it's difficult because we get quite a lot of submissions, and we choose them and we write a little bit of kind of fun info in the calendar as well. So again, hopefully people send them to friends and relatives. Another way native is becoming, disseminated. Our current website is still a work in process. We launched it last year. It's really helped with membership because people are now doing memberships through there, and it automatically renews, which is great for us. It is easy to finish, cancel your membership if you want to. We're selling our publications through there. We're beginning to get some more resources. And in fact, one of our priorities is to develop a section on gardening with native plants. We get so many questions about that. People are interested. People are beginning to be aware of the importance of ecosystem gardening. In fact, even the American Horticultural Society is now beginning to introduce material about native plants and pollinators and insects and things like that within their magazine. Social media, I think, is one of our big ways of connecting with people. We have over 3,000 followers on Facebook. I do something called Plant of the Week. So every week I will highlight a particular plant, write a little bit of information. This year, and I've been doing this for nearly 3 years, but this year I got Jerry's list of the top genera in Nevada. So each month I've been focusing on a different genus and doing plants from there. I think we're down to Cryptantha at the moment. I use iNaturalist as my source because if I go to, iNaturalist and do their ones that are, being research grade, I can get plants all over the state. I haven't traveled all over the state. I've only been in Nevada for 9 years, but it's great. We also announce our programs and field trips. We share native plant sales. I know it's been great that Walker Basin Conservancy have been doing them. We share that information. We share Corey's information. We will share your information next year because people are really keen to be able to source native plants, not go to Moana Nursery and get a nice milkweed, which says it might be native, because all plants are native to somewhere, and all of our big nurseries are very good at greenwashing. Native, yeah, okay, native to New Mexico, not to Nevada. We do share news stories, particularly say those related to conservation or environmental threats and things like that. It is a tough year. We tend to share links with that on Facebook, but in our newsletter we have conservation stories, and we did send a couple of emails to members this year over certain issues to see. And we also write letters of support for various things, or apply our name to it. Instagram, I'm not so good on Instagram. It gets the plant of the week because that's easy to link. I'm keep looking for someone younger who's more Instagram, and maybe they could even get TikTok. I don't know. But you know, we're there, we're reaching, we've built up, we got 400 followers. But I'm not so good on that, I admit. We do just have a new YouTube channel launched a couple of months ago where we're going to share recordings of our programs. Oh, this is an example of a plant of the week. So it has pictures, it says where they come from. I do a distribution map and I write some fun facts, and they vary. But it does get people engaged, and people will share it with their friends. Oh, one of my favorites. So it's for someone who might have seen the pretty plant, but not really understanding. Hopefully some people start to dig deeper. One thing we did this year was an online BioBlitz, and we did that in April because that was our founding month. It wasn't to get work for stuff for the researchers. It was again to just get people to have some idea of how many different species there are throughout Nevada. And as you can see, we had, this was at the end of the month, we had 11,000 observations. Not all of them were people who'd signed up for the project. If you know how iNaturalist works, you can just set your BioBlitz to capture every observation made, which we did. But it was really nice to see how many people jumped in to help identify and things like that. So again, I think that might have opened some eyes to our diversity. Oops, next. Mentoring. When the society started and when it was based up here, at one point, I think we were responsible for one of the gardens at May Arboretum Society. We don't have enough members to do that, but one of the things we have been doing and we'd like to increase is mentoring. So several of our members have been working with the Master Gardener program to maintain the UNR pollinator gardens. And that's been quite an eye-opener, helping people to see whether it's a native plant seedling or it's a weed and things like that. So that's really great education. And some of the Master Gardeners have now joined the Native Plant Society. They're very keen to help volunteer at some of our outreach events. And hopefully that program will go on. Say gardening with native plants, as we all know, gardening with native plants is something that people are becoming aware of thanks to Talamy and the many organizations that are promoting and our understanding of the role of native plants with native pollinators, with birds and things like that. If we want if we want to see birds in our backyard, if we want to have the butterflies, we have to have the native plants because they support so many more of these insects. And so I joke and say it's the gateway drug to native plants, because for many people it is. And especially when you talk pollinator gardening, they'll think, oh, zinnias and stuff like that. But no, we're trying to say, no, you've got to have your globe mallow and your penstemons and all your other things and try. And so, yeah, we're doing that. This is John Weiser's garden. He has been one of our members for many, many years. It is not all native to Nevada. He will tell you that up front. He has this, it's in Sparks. I don't even know how many 100 feet it is. It's tiny. You look at the front of the house and it's ordinary, and you go in the back and you are in this amazing garden. Because he's a keen rock gardener. He loves Eriogonums. And it's just alive, but he does that. He does collect seed. We used to have a seed sharing program, which kind of went by the wayside. Hopefully we can resurrect it from people in their gardens. But he's fabulous. And we collaborate, and he opens his garden at least once a year for us. We collaborated with UNR Day at the museum recently, and he was there. They provided students and seeds, and John's there saying, and the things, when should I plant them? Should I plant them in spring? No, get them in the ground now. And talked about, estivation and stuff like that. So again, people are keen, but trying to get the knowledge in small amounts, the right little doses, is what we're trying to do. We are, say, John has written a fabulous, I don't know how many pages it is about cleaning seeds and collecting seeds and all of that stuff. We are trying to work that into a more small bite format for our website, and then we'll put the whole document in and stuff. But say, yes, definitely, we had a board meeting recently, and the first area we want to add to our website is gardening with native plants and collecting seed and stuff. But that was cool, and I was pleased when I know, you would have preferred to have had Sarah Culper or some of our other members here. But I'm glad that we can come and talk to you a little bit about what we do, because say, hopefully we are beginning to get some people to just think differently. Oh, we've even done some guest appearances this year. Chris Orr, the Wild Nevada crew, were doing a segment. We actually, step back. We contacted them in January to see if they would be interested in any collaborations with us to talk about plants. Because, they talk feature plants. And I remember one segment looking at this gorgeous mountain mahogany, and they said it was in full flower. It was in full fruit because it was all the wispy seeds. But so we contacted them, and she was doing some stuff about Carson City and Prison Hill. So Janelle Johnson, who used to work for Heritage and was a past president anyway, she went out and they did some filming there, and it was looking at some of the smaller things. It wasn't looking at the nice big yellow, whether we're talking about mule ears or sunflowers, and it wasn't looking at tall lupins. It was looking at some of the smaller plants. That is going to be part of the season, which starts in December, so it'll probably go out in January. As soon as I get an actual date, I will be sharing it. I actually recorded a Wild Nevada podcast. Hopefully this is the beginning of more collaborations. Yeah, Chris wants to, we talk about next year's and where she's going, and we might be able to do that. Gain that, hopefully, drips into a wider audience. I think that if we can get someone interested and talk to their neighbors, it's putting that water drop and it spreads out. Our meetings tend to appeal to our plant professionals and the knowledgeable amateur botanists. Actually, tonight's one is more of a program for everyone, because Tiffany will be talking about how she was able to combine art and science and what she does there, and a little bit about her science work, but it's more of a personal story. Our field trips have been a great way. We've seen all sorts of new people this year, and we've welcomed new members. Our newsletters, we have variety of material. Alison has done a great job, and I can't pronounce that last name properly. Anuray, I always have to look at it. So Alison Anuray, sorry, Alison, if you listen to this. Anyway, she's done a fabulous job with the newsletter and getting in a variety of different voices. And we have book reviews. We've had featured interviews, as I said earlier, with our different people. We often have a feature plant of the month. Rose writes conservation news. Larry wrote about pollinators down in Amargosa, so that's great. Social media definitely reaches a wide audience. And when some of the questions and things we are getting the real amateurs, the people who send us a picture of a yellow flower and think we can identify a DYC, a darn yellow composite, from just a picture of the face-on flower. But, it's a good way trying to get people, look at flowers. You have to look at more than just the flower if you want to try and identify a plant and where they grow and things like that. So it's a great interface with real beginners. Pollinator gardening with native plants. That's great. We've started being able to supply a few native plants at the May Arboretum sale, plants that a few of us have. John grows from seed. I dig up some of my penstemons and things and pot them on and keep them because they seed all over the place. But so we are providing native plants from our yard, which is great. Reaching the plant blind is a challenge, always will be. People do not see plants, as we know. Plant blindness is a thing. But hopefully by being excited, by being interested, by offering a variety of different areas, we can get some people to start seeing plants and not thinking we live in a desert of grey, like the guy from Utah thinks. But one of our issues, we are an all-volunteer organization, so widening our base and our contributors and our helpers is obviously something we're working on. But I'm excited that we do have younger members. It's not all of grey hair and us 60 plus. We do have people in the 30, 40 age range, which is great. And hopefully we can develop more. So students are fabulous, but it's the people who are staying here when they finish their work and the people who've moved here that also great. And say we've got very cheap membership. And we have I didn't put our website, did we? Our website is nvmps.org to go to our website. But if you've got any information you want to send it to info@nvs or my personal email address. And thank you for listening. Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
You know well that Arnold and Margaret both have buckwheats named after.
Oh, yeah.
And you know that both buckwheats are Hunt or Hurry, the some mining companies right now. Caithness and Rhyolite Ridge.
Oh, I know.
One's lithium, one's geothermal.
I know.
And one year, years ago, when Margaret was still alive, we tromped out into the Williams buckwheat patch at the mine with some of their engineers. And I just remember walking up to one, finally seeing one. And I looked down at the ground and went, top of my lungs, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in the world of buckwheats. And they didn't want to hear that.
I know.
They like normal, ugly, nondescript buckwheats that people don't know.
Oh, it is super cute. And you know what I do sometimes? I drive down Old 395 and I pull over on the side and I will just admire them because there are some growing outside the fence, so you can get up close and personal with them there. And one time I get this text from Sarah Culper saying, were you on the side of 395? I thought it was your butt as I was looking, as I was bending down and looking. I haven't actually had I'm too nervous to collect seed, though. I mean, they're outside the fence and one could, but I'm just nervous that if I'm there,
I better not invite you.
yeah, if I was touching them and pulling seeds, just be the wrong person would come along and tell me off. But
You know, 3 years ago, I went to a wedding in Providence, Rhode Island. Bride was named Caitlin. Father named her after his field. He's deceased.
oh, yeah. But yeah, so Margaret, we did a calendar we did last year because it was for this year, the 2025 calendar was fun. We were able to fill out with pictures of plants named for our members. And we put information about them because we've had some very illustrious members like the Holgrams, Art and Noel and Patricia. And Jerry he has 8 plants now. He's just got a new one. He's just got a Paracoma, Teamy I believe. And Margaret has 3 or 4 and all sorts of other people. Jim Moorfield, we couldn't get one of his because his aren't in Nevada and we had to do plants in Nevada. But we did have a picture of, or did we? Did we have Nemocladus Moorfieldi? I can't remember now. But anyway, it took a lot of research. It was hard work doing that calendar, but it was fun doing it too. Because when the society was set up, you know, the plant hunting and exploring in Nevada has been spotty. There were people coming through early and then they had a lot of room to be able to find new plants. In fact, on their second field trip, they found Oricaries, I have to look it up, Nevadense, which is how the Holgrams and stuff joined the society because Rupert Barnaby read about it and told the Holgrams who were in New York Botanic. And that's how we got some of these people joining because in our ordinary field trips, they were finding, you know, new stuff, different stuff. And we do have a rare plant. We're one of the sponsors along with the Nevada Division of Natural Heritage for Rare Plant Conference. But because I was talking about public outreach, I didn't mention that. That's every other year. It will be in Reno next year in April, probably. Oh,
Thing Marshall Valley to the rock garden because she had no soil.
oh, I wish I could have met her. I only moved to the state 9 years ago, and I obviously didn't met her. I've heard so many stories because I actually volunteer in the herbarium mounting specimens for Jerry. And you know, all sorts of other people come and go and I hear the stories and I've been able to read through our old newsletters and different things. And oh, how fabulous that you work for her. She sounds a fascinating lady. I believe she was very good at twisting arms. Yeah.
I have one
Oh, yeah.
complaint. I'm going to send it to your info site. I think I saw Mentzelia laevicollis both on the website and the catalog.
Yes, because in 1975, they wanted to do a logo for us. And that was the one that was chosen. Mentzelia laevicollis was chosen.
It's a lovely flower, but the vegetation of the plant is covered in mini cockerels.
Yeah, Velcro plant.
You will destroy your clothing.
Yep.
Every day that you walk amongst it.
Yeah, Velcro plant, but it was chosen in 76 and the logo was established, if I can go all the way to the beginning. Yeah, that it is. It's our official logo.
Beautiful flower.
There we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful colonizer. It takes over where.
Oh, yeah.
The early years of soil.
Yes, no, it's great and it's amazing. I mean, I love it. And you're driving along the side of a road and, you know, you've got rocks and a bit of scree stuff. And then you see this, yeah, hey, Mentzelia laevicollis. Yeah. But yes, Velcro plant. Yes.
Or no fertility scans, just use what you have, get soil tests.
I am not an expert. We'd need John or other people. I do tell people not to add fertilizers because, as been said before, most of our native plants prefer poor soil. I live on Mount Rose and I put in some starts of different penstemon, and I now have I know Strictus and Etonii and Speciosa, and Palmeri all over the place, self-seeding because they like that soil. When I'm potting up things, you know, I get some of the little starts and put them in. I keep going, getting big buckets of the DG from Moana Nursery, and I incorporate that into my soil mix. Sometimes I use leftover soil from stuff, some of the soil from my garden. So I'm still learning because I haven't been here that long, but I know John makes again his own mix, and he will put DG in and different stuff because drainage is important. Sometimes he even uses some vermiculite, but basically, no, they do not want rich soil. Sometimes you might get some great growth for a couple of years, but then whoop.
Regarding sand, there's a little nuance. There's sand and then there's sand, but I found that we snip it out of our ditches for our succulents. They love an 1/8 inch or so, and they want pure gravel to grow in for great drainage with very little fertility. But then we took sand, if you want to call it that, DG off the roadside in Kingsbury Grade, brought it down to our farm, and it was anathema to anything growing in it.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
know what it is, silica or texture, but nothing would grow. So they're both sand. But be careful of that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, yeah, the pH requirement can vary, can't it, and things like that, depending on where. What I always tell people is have a look at your neighbors and look around and see what is local when you're talking about in your own yard. So, you know, go and if you live up near you guys, go and see what is growing well at the farm. Go and visit when there's open gardens and things. And actually the Master Gardeners, it was a pollinator garden tour, I think, in their open garden, see what's growing around you. And also look in the undeveloped areas around you if you've got them. Don't put in the weeds necessarily, or the weedy native species that are coming up through the paving stones, unless you want your whole yard covered in them. But yeah, I think it's.
We're learning the hard way at Rhyolite Ridge that you can take that soil and think you're going to inoculate plants in a greenhouse with it, but that soil also has a hydrology underneath it, just like the centers over at Steamboat.
Yeah,
it's not just the soil, the habitat that the soil developed in,
yeah,
evolved in, and the plants have co-evolved with that soil.
Yeah. And one of the places we take field trips often early in May or so is Red Hill, because there's altered andesite there. You can find 7 species of Eriogonum in that small hill. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking too long, aren't I? And yes, you're right. And again, that's the hydrology and how it developed there, that soil, and it's fabulous. And I mean, I would love to have Eriogonum robustum in my yard, but it wouldn't like it. But Ovalifolium eximum does like it.
So just a reminder, we are going to have a Q&A session. So if you have any more questions, please hold on to them. We're going to go ahead and move on now.
Sorry for
Thanks
talking
so
too
much,
long.
Emma. All righty. All right, everyone. So we're going to try and get Corey back on the screen here. And we're going to try and get him back onto the speakers here in the room. So if you can just give us just a second, Corey, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and unmuting so we can try and test this out.
Okay. Well, now my very highly anticipated presentation. Thank you for having me today, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there. I really was looking forward to being in the room with everyone today, but as it is, we're always improvising here at the nursery, and there's always things going on. I'll get into that a little bit more as to why or what's going on here. But in the meantime, I should first start out introducing myself. I've been the nursery manager for the Washoe Nursery for the last 3 years. And soon after joining the Nevada Division of Forestry, I was also tasked with the seed bank as a second part of my job. So I'm managing both right now, and it looks like for the foreseeable future. All of that is part of our plant materials program, the nurseries and the seed bank program for the Nevada Division of Forestry. So focused on native plants, focused on restoration for landscapes, whether that's disturbed by fire or other disturbances. And so we'll get into the details. But my presentation does focus more on the seed bank, but I will interject some things about the...
All right, we got it working in the room. Go ahead, Corey,
excellent.
continue.
All right. So I'm mainly focusing on the seed bank, but I'll also talk a little bit more about what we have going on at both of our nurseries. So yeah, let me take a look here. Was there another? Oh yeah, we did have a road show scheduled this year that we had to postpone. It was scheduled for our Las Vegas nursery, but we'll pick that up in the springtime and have a field trip out there. But anyway, a little bit more about our plant materials program. Let me just click through this a little bit. Okay, so as I said, we have main components of our operation, 2 nurseries, the Washoe State Nursery, which has been in this location since the mid-70s. And I believe the Las Vegas State Nursery down in Las Vegas at the north end of town in Tule Springs has been there almost as long. And so we have aging facilities with lots of spaces that are needing some upkeep. So that's kind of what my focus has been the last few years. And let's see. So up here at Washoe State Nursery, some of the improvements that we're working on right now, we're looking at adding another greenhouse. The construction has finally started after 3 years of trying to get everything in a row. So now we're working on the utility work just in time for winter. So hopefully we'll get all the groundwork done before things start freezing on us. And all this is funded through infrastructure money, the 2JA funds that we're able to utilize for this greenhouse, and we're also using it to improve our water systems here. Water systems being an issue, we had a big leak in our water line this morning, and that's why I wasn't able to come out, because we're busy trying to get this fixed. And we're anticipating a little bit more trickling through in that program. So we'll hopefully be able to divert some money to the Las Vegas nursery for some of the projects that we have there. And the third component of our plant materials program is the Nevada Seed Bank. So let me click on next here. The NDF Seed Bank was created in 1996 using grant funds and money from the legislature. And it was also contributed by other agencies in Nevada, such as Parks, Agriculture, Department of Wildlife, Transportation, all realizing that we needed to have more seed available for rehabilitation, especially after wildfires, but any other disturbances where we need to get plant material back on the ground. So preventing things like erosion, helping to block out native or invasive species, increasing plant diversity, wildlife habitat, improving water quality, and reducing the threat of fires. So the Nevada Seed Bank provides custom mixes as well as individual species and some seeding equipment for rent, including hand seeders, also known as belly grinders, quads with mounted seeders, seed drill, and we sometimes do involve our helicopter force, Helitac, in order to spread seed that way. I've been able to not participate, but at least see firsthand what we're doing seeding after fires. We had a big fire really close to us just last year, the Davis fire, and we set to reseeding that soon after things were after the winter started. We have moderate success. I've been able to see some things coming up, but it's going to be a continued process to get more seed on the ground. So we provide assistance with other issues regarding seed as well. We have had our conservation crews out collecting seed and supporting those operations. We hope to do that again with some of our conservation crews getting out there on the landscape, scouting out populations and collecting anything that is of interest or is of need to the state of Nevada. Our seed bank also includes a warehouse. That's kind of the focal point of our seed bank here in Washoe Valley, just adjacent to the nursery. And we're able to store thousands of pounds of seed in that warehouse. It's not totally climate controlled, but it is insulated so that we're able to keep seed in a cool space. I'll talk a little bit more about improvements that we're hoping to make in the near future. But that in a nutshell is what the seed bank is about. Just a little bit about collecting native seed, why we focus on native seed. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir in a way about some of this, but landscape rehabilitation, post-fire, and other disturbances, we really need to make sure that we're getting those plants back out in the landscape to help rehabilitate. We know that after fires, there is a natural progression that plants do come back on their own in their own time, but we have some really some issues stacked against us, I guess, when it comes to rehabilitating landscapes. Number one being invasive species. So, cheatgrass is a great example of something that comes in after a disturbance and crowds out all the native vegetation. It also is very flammable, so it will disrupt the landscape more often, and we need to combat that any way we can. So using native plants, both native seed on the ground as well as plants through the nursery are important ways of getting those plants back out on the ground. And I should say that I think a combination of seeding and transplanting is definitely a good way to go when we're rehabilitation. We have limited capacity to produce all those plants at the nursery, but we're growing thousands and thousands of plugs every year, and usually that's being transferred to agencies who are out there planting or coordinating the planting. That's the BLM has contracted with us. Municipalities like Carson City, Washoe County Parks, lots of other entities that are trying to get those plants out in the landscape. Wildlife organizations, hunting organizations also contract with us to get those plants out there. Bitter brush is probably our number one plant that we're trying to produce. It's not very easy to produce, but as Ed Kleiner told me, when we get it out there, seed some of that, we don't see it coming back very quickly in the first year, but after a couple of years, those bitter brush plants are starting to come out, and it's just we're able to kind of check into that system, get those plants established as quickly as we can. Other reasons for collecting native seed: we want to preserve genetic diversity. Some of the same plants coming from different zones have slightly different genetic variations that we want to preserve, and having plants that match up with those seed zones, having seed that matches up with those seed zones to go back out in the landscape will ensure success when it comes to seeding. I stole this next from the Native Plant or the not the Native Plant Society, but seed partnership, the right seed at the right time. Definitely, we want to make sure that we're putting the appropriate plants on the landscape and doing that in a timely way so that we're able to rehabilitate those landscapes. Also, mitigating seed costs. Native seed can be expensive, and any way that we can participate in that and improve the amount that is going out on the landscape and cut costs for agencies who are trying to get those plants out there. So as I said, our seed bank warehouse, located in Washoe Valley, we can store up to about 30,000 pounds of seed there. And the climate controls that are absent right now, I wrote a sub-grant through NNSP to improve our warehouse. We will be doing some renovations to the building and adding a walk-in cooler. That walk-in cooler will serve for preserving some of the more sensitive species that we keep, but also it will be a resource for others in Nevada who are collecting special plant populations and needing a place to store them in cold storage. I should also say that Nevada Division of Forestry is committed to, restoring endangered plant species. So we have a biologist on staff that is focused on that, Maddie Hood. And so she has worked with steamboat buckwheat and some of the other rare plant species in our state, looking at ways that we can preserve them and protect them and make sure that they continue to remain on our landscape. So that walk-in cooler is going to be very helpful for us. And even some of the more typical species that we see all around us, like sagebrush. That seed does not stay viable for very long unless it's stored properly. Even in cold storage, it may only last a couple of years before it starts to deteriorate. And so anything that we can do to preserve those seeds for a longer period of time. I should also say that through the seed collections that we've had over the years, that seed also goes directly into the nursery. We produce about 80 species of plants here in Washoe, and I think it's more like 100 species down in Las Vegas. So anything from the grasses to the shrubs to forbs, and of course trees. We're committed to providing those for private landowners, agencies, making sure that we're taking care of our landscape. So just a few of the most important species that we use on a regular basis in our reseeding efforts. Our seed mixes consist of anywhere from 2 or 3 species up to 5, 10, sometimes more than that species, depending on what the end goal is for the site that's being reseeded. They aren't 100% native. Sometimes we have to have non-natives in the mix that will help outcompete those invasive weeds. So crested wheatgrass is one that ends up in our seed mixes. It's a fast grower, it's a fast germinator, and it helps to get things established and outcompete those invasive weeds. But in addition to those, some native grasses that we make sure are in the list: Indian rice grass, bowelbrush squirreltail, blue bunch wheatgrass, basin wild rye, other wild rye. There's a few other wheatgrasses that are included in that, but these 4 I think are probably our top 4 that end up in seed mixes. We certainly try to match our seed mixes to what's existing on the landscape or what was there before. So that is part of the research that goes into figuring out exactly what needs to go back out on the landscape. So that's some of the grasses. Our seed mixes usually have about 60 to 70% grasses because they get established a little bit quicker, and in the long run they provide sort of a hub for some of those other native plants that we want to come back. So if we're talking about bitterbrush again, bitterbrush thrives when it's got a place to germinate, and naked seed on the naked landscape is not necessarily going to be successful unless we provide other nooks and crannies where those seeds have a chance to stratify naturally and get established. Native shrubs that we use in reseeding typically, one of the big ones, of course, is sagebrush. We have Wyoming sagebrush, basin big sagebrush, and mountain sagebrush, all of which are subspecies and very important depending on which landscape we're talking about. Sometimes we have low sagebrush, which is arbuscula, and black sagebrush is another one that ends up in mixes as well. Antelope bitterbrush, like I said, this has become a more of an important component when we're looking further down the line, further into the future timetable, so that we have these shrubs getting reestablished. Four-wing saltbush, another good one, definitely useful in certain landscapes that are more alkaline. Of course, our soils are often very alkaline, and so saltbush, that's one variety. There's one other species that we might include in there as well. I'm going to get into what our entire seed list is in just a minute. Oh, like right now. So when someone contacts me about getting some seed out on the landscape, this is within NDF as well as other state agencies and municipalities. Sometimes conservation companies will also contract with us. We concentrate on any landscape. There's a big push for riparian restoration and or just outside of the riparian corridors. So, it might be a variety of things that need to be put down. Some things require a couple of different seed mixes. But our seed species list that's up right now, you probably can't read that. It's pretty tiny print, but there's about 40 species here 45 species that we use typically. Of course, we can take a look around for other species, and some of these are not natives. You'll see a couple of varieties of crested wheatgrass on here. Alfalfa is on here, fescue. So some of these are just appropriate for reseeding efforts. Some of them will give way to the native species eventually. But again, it's about getting something established that's going to outcompete those weeds. So the sagebrushes, rabbit brush, all the different grasses that we've got on our list. Other shrubs like spiny hopsage, Nevada ephedra, certainly the bitterbrush, and then a lot of the forbs that are listed on here. So going back to the mixes, 60 to 70% grasses, about 20 to 30% would be those shrubs, and then the remaining would be in forbs. So it's a very small percentage in the overall scheme of things, but we want to make sure that we're putting out a diverse mix of plants, and some of those forbs are very important for our pollinators. And so in small quantities, it doesn't take a lot to get them established and to be a part of the landscape again. Okay. So a little bit more about our seed collection, since that's something that I've kind of taken on once I started here. And at first I was just looking at the landscape around us in Washoe Valley, looking for what we need to use for production at the nursery. And so luckily in Washoe Valley, we have a pretty diverse mix of plants. Even at the nursery itself, we have some of these typical shrubs. We've got a good crop of bitterbrush, desert peach, big sagebrush. We have on a few examples of desert currant, which is something that I'm hoping to put into production at the nursery. So those are the shrubs. We've got a fair amount of forbs that are growing around here as well. And once we expand beyond the nursery boundaries, looking at places like Washoe State Park, we're able to collect seed from there. We also collect willows and poplars and cottonwoods to produce cuttings at the nursery as well. and those have become very important for riparian restoration. We're working with a couple of different entities that are doing some of that work right now. And so, you know, I had some limited experience with collecting seed, but there's two publications that I've listed in the resources here. They're aging publications. I'm hoping that we can get them updated with some fresh information, but they are still very relevant to collecting seed and identifying these plants on the landscape. So, a field guide to collecting native seed in Nevada. That's Cooperative Extension publication. It has been out now for maybe 30 years, and it is just a great resource for us, from what equipment you need for seed collecting, the different types of collection that you might do, the different types of seed that you might come across when you're collecting, and techniques that you might need to use to collect that seed. And then the other one is an even older publication, Guidebook to the Seeds of Native and Non-Native Grasses, Forbs, and Shrubs of the Great Basin. This one is really handy for identifying many of these plants. They are illustrations, not photographs, but I think it's a really well done publication. Both of those are available online. If you do a search for those, you will find them. And like I said, I think they're great publications that need to be updated. So hopefully we can put some efforts into that in the future. We are a member of the Nevada Native Seed Partnership. So we are part of the efforts to make sure that native seeds are part of the mixes that are going out and being available for our restoration projects. Last thing I want to mention is the Seeds of Success program through the BLM. We have hopes to do more support for this program. We're losing some of our conservation crews, but I think we're kind of looking at different ways that we can have staff available that can get out there and help assist with seed collections that have been scouted and are very important to us throughout the state. A couple more things that I wanted to mention, since I downplayed the nurseries a little bit more. We're always looking for, of course, grant funds that can help us reboot some of our aging infrastructure that we have on both sites. And today's a good example for me as far as aging infrastructure that we need to scrutinize a little bit more. A water line that busted in the ground. It's the same water line that we repaired over the summer in a slightly different spot. So that tells me that we really need to probably just replace that water line. So, you know, just infrastructure projects that are going to be key for us moving forward. We know that we are only a piece of the puzzle when it comes to the restoration game, and we're certainly very supportive of Walker Basin Conservancy, other organizations like Reno Food Systems that are out there trying to grow more native plants and provide those for the landscape. I think native plants are becoming more and more of a focus for at least certain people in the gardening and landscape community. We're happy to see that, and we want to do everything that we can to participate in that. So you know, building a new greenhouse is one way that we can increase our production. Down south at the Las Vegas nursery, again, we're hoping to implement some more projects to fix things up down there. But we were also applying for money that's still on the table, as far as I can tell, for a native seed increase project for the Desert National Wildlife Refuge and other wildlife refuges down south, making sure that basically this is through the BLM. They're collecting the seed from those local sources, propagating those at the nursery. We would like to increase that by using raised beds to propagate some of those plants and just increase the amount of seed that's available for restoration projects. So, you know, we're a small but mighty organization when it comes to doing this work, but I think it's invaluable. And because we all value this place that we live, we value our landscapes, And so the Division of Forestry is certainly committed to that through the plant materials program. Okay.
All righty.
So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, I think we take like one right now. We're a little bit behind schedule. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hands.
What?
Yeah.
Corey, do you have a flat fee for growing supercells 6-inch?
Yes. Well, depends on the quantity, but for small quantities, they are each one is $3.75 each.
I think we do one more. Anything else? Anything online, Russ?
Yeah, Corey, just one comment for you online as far
Sure.
as, as you're, going through the motions of repairing infrastructure at the Seabank warehouse, as you
Yeah.
integrate more cold storage potential within the warehouse itself, maybe consider incorporating a dehumidification system as well,
Yes.
if that hasn't been top of mind.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's an important consideration. I know that I'm not able to do the tour up at UNR today, but I know that that was an issue when they added equipment to their operation. So it's on my mind, and as we get further in the planning on that, when we actually order that equipment. So
Perfect.
yeah.
All righty.
Well,
thank you
thank
so
you
much,
very
Corey.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and stick around for the
Will do.
roundtable, and we'll pull you back up here when it's time for that. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. So we're going to go ahead and get back on schedule here. We're rounding out today's presentations. Like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Alex was not able to make it today to present with Jamie, but I would like to go ahead and introduce Jamie Sammons and Bethany Chagnon, representing the Churchill County School District, the Great Basin Institute, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And they're going to talk a little bit about their efforts in spreading native plant awareness to their local communities, as well as some of their work with the Stillwater Wildlife Refuge. So thanks so much. And the PDF is good for y'all? Okay, cool. There we go. All righty, thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Jamie Sammons. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to be here. I am the current plant systems teacher at Churchill County High School in Fallon. So you forgive me if it's a reflex to be like, all right, everybody, grab a cup of tea, get your notebooks, let's get ready for some work. If you're not familiar with plant systems, it's very standardly around the state as an FFA pipeline for students, part of the CTE program. We consider it a supervised agricultural experience for children to be in the greenhouses and grow for an entire season. In order to get more students in the greenhouses, which by the way, I think they all should be, our school implemented a side pathway where kids could also take the class as a science selective. I got a lot more kids in the class. And if I'm honest, when I very first started, let's see, how am I sharing? Is it this one? Okay, great, thank you. It's Fallon. I thought I would have a room full of farm kids. That's actually not the case. I have a lot of Mohawks, a lot of dog collars and cute purple hair. I have students that are from military families on the base. I have students who take the buses in from the tribe every day. It's this wonderful hodgepodge of literally growing students that I'm so proud to be part of. These pictures I'm in the science building. We have a bug bulletin board, and as the kids are out rummaging through the gardens, they very often use their phones to take pictures of bugs that we share with everybody else in the school. It's their bulletin board, which I love. There's art on it. There's like encouraging messages for their fellow students. The other day I saw be somebody's perennial source of joy, which I love. I love the ownership of it. Our mascot is a Gurkha. It's literally a green wave of alfalfa, if you didn't know. These are also, again, student pictures. I don't have any children of my own, and so the learning curve was really high for me. There's a couple things that are absolutes I've kind of learned with teenagers. Number one, it doesn't matter if they've just come to lunch. They're going to come to you hungry, and they're going to ask for snacks, always. Number two, if you leave your phone unattended on your desk and leave it unlocked, you will definitely get some selfies that you didn't think you would. Also, Converse are still very cool in the high school community. The other thing that I've learned very quickly is that, man, once those seeds start to germinate, I've got them. They're hooked. The picture in the center is a sophomore who, while we were talking about different methods of seed stratification, came up to me and was like, "Ms. Hammonds, I was hunting this weekend and I found seeds in the gullet of a chukar that I got." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, can I bring them in to plant them?" And I'm like, "Well, let's do it." They germinated. And now we also have a pheasant gullet collection. It's very next level stratification. I'm so proud of what he's doing. It's pretty cool. We haven't identified him yet, but we will. These are our office spaces. We have 2 beautiful greenhouses that we grow in and 2 raised beds in between. We took over in fall. I took over in fall of 2023. The greenhouses weren't used for a while, so they were really in a state of disrepair. Through our annual plant sale and student fundraisers, we've been able to replace fans, repair leaks. The greenhouses had holes in the roof. We've got to fix that, and I think this is the first winter that we're really going to see some good growth happen over the winter. Let's see. In 2023, we received seeds from the Foundation Seed Program. And I'm not going to say that this is the catalyst or the springboard of our program, but maybe whether it's the catalyst or coincidence, it doesn't matter. It really is, in my opinion, where we started to grow literally and figuratively. We got Stephen out to the class to speak about native seeds, and he gave a pretty good detailed presentation about his job and how plants play a part of that every day. The globe mallow there is literally growing right outside our door in a sand parking lot that's student grown from the seeds we got. A couple other great things that happened shortly after that. We were adopted by the conservation district in our town, and by Marley Jenkins, who's bigger conservation. We got some grant funding for the Nevada Outdoor Education Grant. This was a big game changer for us. That grant provided for barrels. We decided to get wine barrels for each student and the soil to go in it. I had a little video that Lucia from KUNR made, but you might look it up. She did a great job coming out and interviewing the kids about barrels. We were also taken in by a local farmers group. It's a group of women who farm together called the Green Goddess Collective. They have a storefront in Fallon. They're honestly in my class probably once a week. We've done natural dye classes together. This is Kim Urso, who came from Yellow Petal Flower Farm. She won a big ag award this year as a small business of the year. Here she is teaching the kids how to divide up dahlia tubers. And then on the right there is Alex, my farm partner out at the refuge. She came in to help. Lahontan Elementary is attached to the high school. And so we helped them with a school garden that they just got established. We grew all the plants for it. Alex came and helped as well. And then I was adopted by the Stillwater National Wildlife Refuge. And I cannot tell you how much that's changed the program. We got a Get Kids Outdoor grant from the Sierra Club here, and they provided transportation for us to get out to the refuge and plant native seeds that the kids grew into a pollinator garden. At the refuge office, we pulled out all the grass and the kids put in over 200 plants that they grew. This is them on the field trip. I left that up in the corner because I thought it was very cool that the kids were posting on their own social media of the trip out. When I pulled them on the way, I was like, how many of you guys have actually been to the refuge? 3 of the 50, which was really sad. They had a picnic. They ran around the refuge farm, got a private tour by Carl, the refuge manager of the refuge. They had a picnic. They ran around like kids all day long, and it was wonderful. My favorite part, no cell reception. You should have seen them frantically trying to refresh. But after they realized there was none, the vibe came down and they just enjoyed the day. This is what the front looks like. It looked like the day that they came out and all the grass was removed. These are all recycled materials and it goes out and around the building. You can see the plants starting to grow in. It was rice grass and Great Basin wild rye, apricot mallow, yarrows, princess plumes, things like that. These are YCC kids that the refuge has out every summer helping tend the garden. We're going to have a Refuge Day grand opening to have a ribbon cutting for the farm garden, but that's been delayed. Postponed. Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over to Bethany, who can tell you more about the Refuge Farm.
Yeah. So, hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Bethany Shagden. I'm here in my personal capacity today, just stepping in for Alex, who wasn't able to join us because she is sick. But normally, in my everyday life, I am one of the other refuge managers out at Stillwater National Wildlife Refuge. And so we are very lucky to be kind of starting up this project. I'll talk a little bit about, before I kind of get into some of the goals and everything, I'll talk a little bit about kind of the history and how we got to where we are. Back in 2023, so I've been here for about 6 years. So this was about, it was a few years ago. 2023, so around the same time Jamie was stepping in and getting the school kind of breathing life back into the greenhouses over there, we were moving our office. Carl and I, at that point, it was just 2 of us, and we were frantically trying to get all of our stuff moved out to this really beautiful new farm building that we were able to purchase that's right on the refuge. It has been a dream of refuge managers for probably as long as the refuge has been there to be able to have an office there. And we were just really, really lucky to be able to get this property. And once the government is open, I would invite all of you to come out and visit us because it is a really special place. But with that property, it also came up with 8 acres of agricultural lands. And so Carl and I were moving in, and it took Sarah Culpa maybe a month before she was already scheming to get us grow a native seed out there, which we were pretty happy to oblige. So the vision, I guess, once we got out there, we saw that we were going to have all this land, and it just felt a shame not to do something with it. And so Sarah brought us under her wing, brought us into the Nevada Native Seed Partnership. And so that's where this really started growing. And so with the bipartisan infrastructure law, there was a good amount of funding that was going out to some of the partners. And so we were able to fund this project. And so we have funding for next 3 years. 3 years to really grow this. And so some of the goals for this project, luckily, like Jamie said, we were able to steal Jamie and Alex D'Souza and bring them on and start. This past year has really been trying to build the infrastructure to grow those agricultural fields into a native seed amplification site. So we're trying to focus on species that are hard to source So yeah, your forbs, maybe some grasses, stuff like that. And the other thing we want to do is not just be an amplification site, but we also want to be like a demonstration site. So in Fallon, the biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of people to get into the native seed growing world is that they can't necessarily make that jump to put everything on drip. So we wanted to really be able to show that you could do small scale, you could do some stuff on drip, but we are also prioritizing species that we think might grow well with flood irrigation, so that we can test out like, well, maybe you can't do Princess Plume, but maybe we could do, certain species of sage, or maybe rose, or like a few other species might be set up really nicely to be able to propagate and grow successfully with drip, and some with flood. So those are a few of our goals. So yes, increase native seed, especially for the annuals, biannuals, determine which plants are going to grow best in our area, and then kind of test out what works for some different irrigation methods, so that we can kind of lower that barrier. A farmer doesn't have to step in and try it out himself that first year. We'll do the hard work and tell them what we failed at. So there's going to still be a pretty large learning curve. We've gotten a lot of the fields prepped, but we know that we're going to be experimenting with various methods for trying to keep the weeds down and pests, and try to get clean seed out of these harvests, and figure out where to go from there. So this first year, we are focusing on just 1 acre, and then we'll be expanding next year into that other 8-acre section. And so, yes, we'll see. So a couple of the various species that we're going to be working with: common yarrow, white sage, showy milkweed, dusty maiden, sulfur flower buckwheat, common sunflower, desert peach, door sage, woods rose, and globe mallow. And some of those species, like Jamie said, are already growing pretty well in our pollinator garden. So we do know some of those will do pretty well with the soils and the conditions that we have. So why did we choose, thank you, these specific plants? So there's a few different reasons. So some we were selected specifically because the seed source was coming from Churchill County. So like Corey mentioned earlier, it's really important to have the right seed in the right place at the right time. And so we were trying to prioritize species that we had a seed source that was available in the area that we were pretty confident could grow well. And then, like I mentioned, other species we chose specifically because we've seen them growing along drainage ditches. And so we thought we might be able to get them to grow really well with flood irrigation. And then we also chose a few species because it's been done already in other locations, and there's a significant amount of data already collected on those species, so that we felt pretty confident we could be successful. So yes, just some more of specific species. So in this spring, we will actually be breaking ground. We have a lot of the infrastructure in place. We have our greenhouses up and running. We've done a lot of the field prep in that 1 acre field already. And we are contracting with Walker Basin to try to produce some of the plants that will be going into that 1 acre. Our capacity to grow that many plants at this point is still so limited because we have a very small greenhouse and only 2 people. But we do foresee us being able to ramp up production beyond that. So for this first year, we'll be working with Walker Basin. They'll be growing out a lot of plants for us for the spring, and those will be going into the ground. And then we foresee the spring of 2027 being able to ramp up enough of our own and work with Walker Basin to plant out that 8 acre field. So like I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of soil prep in the fields out there. We've tilled them, we've re-leveled them. We have our drip irrigation plan kind of in place, and we're just kind of getting that put together now. We're going to be installing a deer fence once we get back to work. And so any volunteers, we are more than happy to put people to work if anybody wants to come out. I'll give you a lovely tour, maybe an airboat ride if you. And so, yes, so still a lot of work to do to get up and running for the spring. And then the sunflowers, helianthus, those are going to be directly sown, and then the rest will be coming in 1-gallon pots for the most part. So they'll be pretty well-established plants going in. So I think that we'll be able to get some pretty good success there. So drip irrigation, that is a little section that is a lot of clay. So we did amend a lot in there with some perlite and some compost to try to get some more organic matter into that soil. And we'll be working on putting that together also before the spring. So flood irrigation, again, this is only specific species are going in there that we thought would be really successful. And there's limited information on using flood irrigation to irrigate native plants. And so that's one of the questions that we're really interested in answering is like, what species are going to thrive and what species do we need to reassess, and what would be, work better with drip. And like I mentioned earlier, part of this is coming from working with our local farmers. The Green Goddess Collective, they've been amazing coming out and sharing some of their concerns they had about what would work with flood or what would work with drip, and sharing some of the things that they've done. And so that's been really important, is that we've been trying to build that community so that we can kind of all troubleshoot this and answer these questions together, and hopefully give the farmers some answers and help them move forward in growing native seed. So I already talked about this. So yes, the drip irrigation, we'll be working on that. We'll have some ways to fertilize it directly with our drip, and we'll get creative and probably be doing a lot of manual labor over in the flood irrigation. But that will be another valuable piece of information, is maybe there's a lot of things you can automate on the drip irrigation side that you wouldn't be able to automate with flood. And so there may also be a difference, not just in cost, maybe that's a barrier, but labor. Like, how much more labor is it going to take? I imagine that we are going to hate ourselves as soon as the weeds start germinating that we went this route. But these are all things that we're working on. So here's just a little map of kind of our setup. So like I said, we have this 8-acre field. This 1-acre field is right there, right on the main road. Anybody driving out to the refuge is going to have to drive right by that. And hopefully in the spring, it will be just a field of beautiful native wildflowers. And then we've done a lot to start building the infrastructure there, and also, have other refuge activities and places for other staff and visitors to still be able to come and visit. So I think that is the last slide. So overall, we're really excited about the program. I feel it's like still very early on. I am more than happy to come back next year, and hopefully I'll have a lot of great pictures and more that I can share, and some of the questions that we've been able to answer. But thank you guys for having us, and we really appreciate everything. Yeah. That's a good question. So I don't think that was something that Walker Basin has used in the past, but that came out of our conversations with the Green Goddess Collective about something that was really effective for them.
Just a really gentle fertilizer for some of the plants, established plants, to usually get potted up was was where that was going.
And the other thing too is like we've had long discussions internally about like, okay, well, we don't want to baby the plants too much, but at the same time, our main goal is to maximize seed production. So like we're not necessarily changing anything genetically. That plant is going in, it's source identified seed. And so we do want it to grow in its natural conditions. And if we were putting that plant out into restoration, we would probably maybe not baby it quite so much. But since we want to maximize the amount of seed each plant is producing, we're like trying to find that line of like, yeah. Go ahead.
You know, it might be a good self-empowerment session to have a little seed cleaning class over there.
We would love
Low
that.
tech,
Yeah.
and it's pretty easy to get seed fairly clean with non-expensive options.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
The other benefit of that we found on our farm is the residual materials that you're skimming off have residual seed in them.
Mm.
And we tend to broadcast those around our farm.
Oh,
when we
that's
want the
nice.
species to grow.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we have a Missouri iris field coming on strong.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is very cool. That's good advice.
Very cool.
Are some of the seeds gonna come from already from Stillwater? Like I was thinking of the soy milkweed.
Yes. So the showy milkweed specifically was collected on the refuge. So we are using that source.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have one online, but I think I'm gonna wait until the roundtable and propose it to the entire group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But as a product of Churchill County High
Oh, were you?
School,
Ah.
we used to rep for Mohawk in the conference.
And the Chuck Taylors.
I'm pretty happy to see that those greenhouse facilities are being taken care of.
It's so important.
I used to walk by those every day thinking.
Were they not in use
Yeah.
when you were there?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
They were full on dilapidated.
Oh. When did you graduate?
A long time ago, 2008.
That's not very long ago. But that's good. That's good. That's good for me to know. I'm
She's
trying to get a
piecing together
ballpark
the
of-
history.
Yeah, trying to get a ballpark of how long they were not. And for a farm town, it was embarrassing, if I'm honest. Yeah.
And the other thing Jamie didn't mention too is that a lot of her students are the ones that came up with some of the solutions on like how to make
bet.
those repairs and stuff. And
You bet.
it's yeah.
There's a lot of ownership in the greenhouses, which is very cool. And now the refuge.
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
Thank you all.
All righty, everyone. So that's going to go ahead and round out our presentations for the day. Can we please get one more round of applause for all of our presenters today? Thank you so much, guys. We wouldn't be here today without your generosity. So again, thank you so much for coming on out today. So that, like I said, is going to conclude the presentation portion of today's forum. At this time, if I could invite all of our presenters back up to the front here. So that we can begin our roundtable discussion. If you have time, Bethany, if you need to leave, yeah, that's okay, no worries, unfortunately. But everyone else, if you're sticking around, go ahead and come on back up. Corey, we'll get you back up on the screen here in just a second. For those of you that are attending virtually, feel free to go ahead and begin submitting any questions for the panel into the Q&A section of Teams. And just give us a few moments to get set up here. Russ, if you can go ahead and switch Spotlight over to your camera. And we'll get going here. And go ahead and unmute yourself there too, Russ. Russ is at feedback. We're gonna play my microphone.
Can folks hear me online? I think I might have corrected it. Yeah, we're good.
As soon as I turn the room mic on, it's gonna. So let's see. Let's go ahead and mute Russ. It seems like everyone could be able to hear. Can everyone still hear us online? Or can you give a thumbs up if so? Perfect. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with any questions from our in-person audience. So does anyone have any questions so far for the roundtable?
I have two.
Start with one.
Yeah, I have two plant ID questions. I'm trying to figure out what it is. And so it would be more towards the the burn at Davis. And it's been a year now. And so there's a plant there that I'd like identified. And I have photos. And then another plant is a rock outcropping along Steamboat Creek that is way up high. I had to take my ladder in and I was trying to photograph that. So if anybody wants to use that, we can invite them.
I think that's something that we could probably get. If you want to send in a picture for us, obviously just describing it. We don't really sure what it is right now.
Do I just send it to you?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we can do that. We can try and help you out.
Send it right now. Native plant.
You can also send it to us if you send something to info@Native Plant. I'll often share it on our Facebook page or Instagram. And if I can't identify it or someone else can't, then we take it to Jerry in the herbarium and then it is definitively identified if it's a Nevada plant. But yeah, you can add to a post. We do not, visitors can't just put in our Facebook page, but I do share them on the Facebook page, and because that's a great conversation starter as well.
Right. I think maybe it's an orchid. I don't know. But it's an area that's slated for development. So I'm like,
Yeah, we get a lot of people asking questions, what is it? And we keep a file of reference people that we can, if we don't know, we can send it to a little group. And depending on what it is, whether it's in a garden at a home or if it's in nature, and enough people are in that little network that somebody could pipe stack.
right.
Cooperative extensions in different areas are good for it.
Yeah, the one in the burn looks like it had to have been part of the seed mix that was put down this time last year. So, and it's very successful.
And post-burn is interesting because, as someone alluded to, there is a succession of different species that come up. And I spent a little bit of time walking in the Arrow Creek open space when they had, the Rock Farm Fair. And it was interesting to see the succession of plants that came up. You get the Nicotiana and you get the prickly poppy and you get all sorts of stuff coming up. And then as the years go, it changes a little bit.
I'm a little concerned with fires because people come from all over the place to fight fires. And the amount of disturbance, and we have cattle bringing meats to the Sierras every summer, so yeah, look out.
Something you can try too. There's a plethora of different apps on your phone that can. No. A lot of times you can actually take a picture and post it on like their forums, and you can kind of collectively have that identified just through the community as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you want definitive ID, go to UNR, go to Jerry Team.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It's,
and you
it's
can
fun.
always come through us to Jerry team as well, because I happen to do a lot of the Facebook management and I also volunteer for Jerry, so he's great.
But Jerry will prefer an actual specimen, physical specimen.
I wouldn't touch the one plant. I would
Right.
never touch that
Yep.
one there.
And just a general thing for people who want to have plants identified, don't just take a picture of the flower, where it's growing, so it's habitat, but leaves, stems, as well as flower. And if it's something in the Asteraceae, taking the filiaries, taking the back, because they're really important for identifying the Asteraceae, or as I used to call them, the DYCs, the darn or damn yellow composites. Yeah.
Any questions online first? So I think we'll go and like swap back and
You want
forth.
to do a little back and
Yeah,
forth?
we'll do back and forth.
So this will be a proposal for the entire group. So on growing biennial species like Douglas's Dusty Maiden, do you foresee grower resistance with growing a species for 2 years, but only getting a single year's production? And second to that, do you have any strategies or experiments to overcome that limitation? For example, multi-cropping with an annual species to have harvest both years in production. So essentially, putting all your resources in for 2 years for a single year's harvest.
You know, I think that that's something that will certainly be a challenge for a lot of producers. But, you know, I would really recommend setting their price point for whatever makes sense for them for the amount of effort that they put into that seed, and, you know, really trying to identify what the best price point for that effort is going to be. But it's definitely going to be a tricky act for sure. And that's partly why we've had so much trouble with trying to convince producers to be able to produce those types of species. It's been a very difficult challenge.
You know, for short-lived perennials, we've planted supercells at distant spacing and ended up with millions of new plants down the road. Penstemons are like Palmer, 3 years, you get great crop, 4 year, you're getting dead plants. But as long as the ground was clean, the next generation arrived. And we wanted that dynamic. So in the long run, you get a bed that sustains itself over generations. That's our goal.
Yeah. And you know, like a lot of our traditional crops, you know, they're annuals anyway, right? So it's, you know, that hasn't been an issue for thousands of years for our producers, right? So I think really setting that price point for the records is going to be key. And unfortunately, I know it's difficult to know before we get into, or before they get into it, because not a lot of information on that currently already, but it's just been a balancing it for it.
Any other insight?
We can take one from the live audience now.
I want to comment back on the previous thing with Davis Creek. One, was the plant at a lower elevation? Because all the seeding was done high from the helicopters.
Yeah, so you know where the county sand house is, where in the
Yeah,
forestry road?
yeah,
So it's on the lower part of that forestry road, where it makes a dog leg.
yeah. There's been no seeding there.
Really?
And if you guys want more information on Davis Creek, Carson High School students, we've ran we've had a whole 2 years of study now since it first happened, and then we just did it. So we've ran 4 transects there to watch for succession and see what's going on there. So it's been pretty good. There's been very low amounts of cheatgrass, thankfully, in the lower region. It's popping up a little bit now. But that, and then I know Corey might be able to comment. I know they did planting there too, but I don't think it was overly successful. But not where our transects are, because we're looking for natural succession.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. If this is near the entrance of the park, there was some seeding done with hand seeders, but it's all really in front of the entrance of the park. So it might be a little further down the road than where you're talking.
Yeah, it's on the, it's probably a half a mile up.
Okay. We didn't seed up that far, and I don't know if there was any plantings up that far either. To my knowledge, there wasn't.
Well, I'll send the photos out to, and try to get some real information.
Any online questions there, Russ?
So why would native plants be important to the general public? Why do we care about native plants? Why use native plants? Why can't we just use ornamentals that are constructed in a laboratory somewhere and put those in our front yards?
Well, what we're trying to push is go back to Talamy's work. If you read Bringing Nature Home and all of those other ones, he's an entomologist. He is out east, but he's done research. Native plants support many more native insects. If we want birds in our garden, we need to have native insects, because most baby birds have to have insects. Even though the adults might take seed, the baby birds need insects. If we want butterflies, if we want insects that are going to be protecting our plants, because you've got predator insects as well as the ones that we don't like the aphids, we need to have the native plants, because they are often the host plants, say either for larval forms, or they provide the right things for nesting in. If you think of the hollow stems of some of the native plants, you look at milkweed stems and they, you know, even for birds, I mean, the fine stuff that comes off that in the spring. Bunch grasses are great. I mean, that's protective area, again, for insects. So it's keeping balanced ecosystems is one of the reasons the native plants do. I mean, you can have some beautiful plants from other places and they look gorgeous, but also it's not right plant, right place. You said, right, Corey said, right seed, right time, didn't you? One of the things for gardeners is right place, right plant, right place. Native plants, having evolved in the area and in the soils, you know, they need less water. They need less augmentation. You're not taking some baby from somewhere else that you really have to fuss over. So it also reduces your load as a gardener.
And just a little bit more practical sense too. You know, we're here in Reno. If you take a look at even just some of the hills that are right next to us, past the highway here, full of cheatgrass, and that's the only thing that's there, right? That type of environment is much less resilient to fires. And you know, the some fires set off right now, all the houses along that hillside at extreme risk of being burnt up. And that's just a very economically quick and easy example of why natives are so much more important than you realize for the general public, because they're just so much more resilient to fires than something like cheatgrass is, especially Medusa head. Which, you know, if you go a little further north, that's exactly the problem that they're facing up there.
They're realizing with our seed blends, a lot of the native ones that we're planting for restoration in the urban context are very functional for being low maintenance, low water consumptive, less mowing, no fertilizers, no chemicals, everything about them. And a lot of those species also, they're the protection for the birds, the ground covers, the shrubs that hide them from the predatory birds. But I keep learning about new connections all the time. And one of those being the larvae that pop out on some of these species are time for baby sage grouse. Those sort of revelations are invaluable. So the native system, you know, the local native system, the local ecology is really important. The context of each species within that community.
I think for us at my level, with the students at the high school and probably what you're experiencing as well, is that I think that if they grew it, they have a bigger ownership in it. And then if they know it goes out to the refuge to be part of the bigger ecosystem data, there's an ownership that happens for the state and a love of being outside in our beautiful state. And you know, that's grand vision, and I hope that they're getting that message. But I think that
I hope they infect their parents.
yeah. I love that they go home and tell their parents.
Yeah.
And say I'm new to the States. I said 9 years or so, and I was lucky enough to be given some native plants, Eriogonum umbulatum and various penstemons and things like that. And they're self-seeding in the back. It's wonderful, my backyard. So I do live in a community which has a homeowners association and all sorts of rules, but luckily no one can see my backyard. So it's wonderful looking at what's there compared to what's in the front and listening to the sounds and seeing the insects and the birds and things like that. But yeah, I mean, say you buy a few penstemon plants, and if you've got the right ones and they like the soil, they're going. And we had some remediation done to reduce some of the sagebrush and bitterbrush because we are close to Mount Rose Highway, and yeah, we were evacuated Davis Fire. So, and I didn't like sagebrush right by my house. And it's interesting seeing what's coming up there, some of the astragalus and some of the different species and things coming up. So yeah, definitely. And so I'm getting pretty flowers with Zephyr.
Just something to add to that, you know, as far as having plants that are not native to a place, that can propagate some more of the problems that we see. Bringing in exotic plants will also bring in exotic insects. So if we have more of those exotic plants out there, it's just going to perpetuate problems that we hopefully won't see. I mean, I'm just thinking of the Russian olive as a great example of something that you know, it's been used for years across the West for certain purposes, but it gets invasive in waterways and chokes out native vegetation. So it's just going to reduce the biodiversity that's out there, the natural biodiversity that's there.
Guess I could add the tamarisk. That was another one of those plants that just taken over waterways. But a comment earlier is, the non-native plant introduction hybrids that are brought in for production in terms of agriculture. Granted, you know, the ways of life of agriculture have gone on for generations. And at some point, non-native hybrids were introduced out on the range. And they, it doesn't take long for them to establish. And you got cattle producers that are looking to maximize productivity. Those hybrids are preferred over the natives. Which is, you know, a business decision. Certainly, you got to respect that. And now we're focusing on native plant restoration, native grasses. You know, we want out there on the range, but those take 2 to 3, sometimes longer years to establish. So how do we bring those interests that may be competing, you know, or adverse to each other together to understand, you know, the common thread that I think we're all trying to accomplish with native plant restoration. And it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I'm up for it, but you know, the agencies also, you know, are part of the fold, and of course you're going to have a national agenda, you know, and the whole thing there. So it's a very dynamic function, I think, when we look at what we're trying to do on, you know, the upland range areas, which is pretty much all of Nevada. But my question I have is about seed gathering, seed collection. Is there a schedule that lists when native grasses, for example, when they go to seed versus forbs and shrubs? You know, is there a schedule out there that can indicate? Because I went walking up in mountains out there, Pyramid Lake, the other day, and of course the sagebrush seeds are all ready, so I collected some sagebrush seeds. But the Tozapa root that we use, this root is known. All the seeds are gone, all the pods are open, and that's what I was, and also the bitter root. I was looking for that too, but is there a resource available that describes the schedule of when plants go to seed?
Yeah, definitely. NRCS, their production guides, they have guides for a lot of our native species. If you just type in NRCS production guides, or I guess the USDA plants database, you can search for most of our native species here. They will send you to the links for those production guides, and in them, they do have general guidelines of when each species is ready to be collected from. Now, of course, it's, you know, it might be slightly different just based on the region, kind of the microclimates of that area, of course, but it should give you a pretty good general sense of when to be able to collect.
You know, the CalFlora digital website shows the flowering window for each species, but the catch is seed maturation from that is very weather dependent, exposure dependent. A plant around one corner from the same plant around the corner, aspect changes. It's like a different world.
Yeah, it can be.
So what the site specific gets to be pretty, you know, particular.
What I'm doing now with a lot of the tribes here in the state is it's one thing to have your seed that are available, your native seeds, whether it be wildflowers or shrubs, but it's another thing to know to go out and gather and begin that whole cycle. You know, it's, you know, within itself. It's kind of nice to know that you can go look at Great Basin seed and find what you need. But it's another thing, like what they're doing in Arrington, for example, at the Arrington Plain Trail. They've got those. They just constructed 2 new 48-foot hoop houses, and they're growing the native rice grass, which is their traditional mosaic. but they couldn't find it out there in Mason Valley. So that's what they're doing, is growing that rice grass for seed production, which is cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And, just an unfortunate part about seed collecting is you're just going to have to go and visit that site probably multiple times throughout the season to really understand when that plant's going to put the seed. So, well, from an economic point, of course.
Sometimes I look on my like try to look in the area and look at photos of the phenology throughout the year and like from past years of like that specific site.
I kind of use the basic rule of thumb of 6 weeks. And then, so if I see something that's, like magnificent in bloom, then I just keep track of it. And I just use that general rule 6 weeks but you have to, play with it.
Then comment online as well as there is the Western Forest Manual that provides great information on phenology and flowering really does that way.
Then, of course, you have to hope that it doesn't go hot and dry quickly and then they shut down seed production for the plants to save their resources for the perennial plants.
Another wrench in there. Another wrench in there. I'm having trouble hearing who's going, but anyway, another wrench in there that I keep running into is when the animals come through to chomp on those seeds. I'm always competing with deer when it comes to collecting certain seeds or insects. Lupin is a great example. I've been trying to collect lupin seed, figure out exactly when I need to get back out there, and if I'm a couple days late, the insects have come through and have consumed most of the seed. So multiple factors, but just keep track of those, and year after year you get honed into the exact timing. Every year's different though.
So on the question of the importance of native plants to the public, I've noticed folks coming into the farm stand to buy native plants, to buy plants. It's not that they wanted something different, it's just that they didn't know the options. I got a lot of people coming through wanting blueberries. And if I have a conversation with them, it's not that they wanted a blueberry, they wanted a berry. So then I can say, oh, well, let's do a service berry or let's do a currant. And then I can explain the wonders of the native plant and how it's going to be way easier than trying to do a blueberry. And I've never had somebody say, no, I wanted the blueberry. They get excited about how it's going to be easier and how it's a native plant. They just didn't know. Or I get a lot of people wanting purple flowers that are not going to do well here. So then I can talk to them about a Rocky Mountain penstemon and that it's a native plant, and then we'll sell those off the shelf. So it's all about the education and the offering of alternatives. And I've never had somebody not be excited about that option.
I wouldn't think so. Well, Lindsay, while we have you, we've got another question online. So the individual specifically recalled you talking about 90% success with low mollard transplants versus 0% success with direct seeding. So what stage of the seedling's growth have you seen the most success with transplanting? So size, weeks, or planting?
I say that. Have them see me. It's about this big.
Yeah, you're on there, yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look at my records for how many weeks old they were. I don't have that off the top of my head, but they were maybe about 3-4 inches across. So they had maybe about 2 sets of leaves on them. When I put them in, I put some in a little bit smaller, so maybe 2 inches. So about 2 to 4 inch diameter was the biggest, and both those sizes did really well.
Okay. And that would have been about how many weeks after germination?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Okay.
I don't.
And what time of year we transplant?
We did a set in May, and then we did a set more recent, I want to say beginning of September. And they've both done well. The ones in May are the full grown ones that I showed on the slides. And then the ones we did in September are now maybe about that big. And we'll see how they do over the winter. Still, I don't suspect they get much bigger at this point. We'll see what the weather does.
I was just asking because got some tiny little baby plants that John Weiser had grown, and he gave them to me in the spring, and I decided to keep them in pots. I put them in slightly larger pots during the summer because I was concerned if I put them out in my soil and it doesn't have drip and things. I find it so hard to work out how much water, and also the bunnies and the deer and stuff like that. So I've been planting some of these around in October to see as I say, I'm still learning, but it's interesting. They say your May ones were good, but they were slightly larger, your May ones, you were saying.
Yeah, those ones were probably about the 3-4 inch.
And then I think the winter can, especially if you get some snow and stuff, they've got a nice blanket over the winter, even if you're putting slightly snow.
Mhm.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll play with the irrigation. They're in a section with other plants, so I think we were overwatering them at first, and then reading through the guide that you guys provided, it said about every 6 weeks provide some water. So I was way overwatering them, but they still did well. So we've changed the irrigation around in that area so the water less and see what kind of effect that has.
Thank you. Anybody else interested? There's a handful online, so
Let's hear it.
okay. Stephen, this one's for you. How can we prepare for the NDAC program applications? Is there a newsletter we can sign up for to receive updates? Can we access the applications ahead of the application period to ensure that we're all set up, be eligible candidates?
So, yeah, if you're looking for more information on like a newsletter, go ahead and send me an email. I'll make sure that you're included on my mailing list. So anytime that I send out any of our applications or notifications of some of our outreach events, you'll be getting all of those. In terms of ways to prepare, we do have we typically keep the application on the NDA's website. I think it's agri.nv.gov. If you go to the grants section of that website, we'll keep up the application throughout the year on our website. But keep in mind, though, that while the application itself is really not going to change, the species may change from application period to application period. So whenever we are in an actual period in which we're accepting applications, it may just look a little bit different than the species, but the application is going to stay the same pretty much in perpetuity from here on out.
I'd say as somebody who just recently did both of those applications, that they were pretty straightforward. And the part that took the most amount of time, the most amount of thought and research was the timeline section to really think through that really detailed and get some input from somebody who's done it before to do a nice job on the timeline. But the rest of it, really simple.
Yeah, definitely. And that's intentional. The timeline section of the application is really what we're grading against our different applicants. So do put your best effort forward in that. We include resources in the application, such as the USDA plants database. If you look on those production guides, that's going to give you a very good starting point for your application. And keep in mind too, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me whenever. I'd be happy to help you as much as I can.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey. Can you go ahead and elaborate on how you were able to use IIJA funds to fund your new greenhouse?
Sure. So there's been several, I guess 3 or 4 different rounds of those funds becoming available over time. And as part of that program, I guess native nurseries around the country were eligible. And there's not every state has a nursery right now. So, but we were one of those that was eligible for that. So basically it's the same kind of process as other applications, but the money is basically already set aside for nurseries. I just had to put in a proposal explaining what I was going to do with that money. And so round one was building a new greenhouse. Round two was a supplement to that because we needed more money for that. So the first two proposals looked identical, I'd say. And then the third proposal, I researched more about our water needs on the site and where we have shortcomings or where we have issues that need to be addressed. So it's just a matter of the proposal that comes out as the funding is announced.
Perfect. Thanks, Corey.
Sure.
Anybody else in person? I gotcha. So there's another comment on here about there's someone involved with the Midwest Native Seed Network, and one resource we're developing collectively is phenological windows for seed collection, and network members submit their data on when fruits and ripe seeds are collected. So there's a working group right now in the Midwest that's actually using real-time data to define phenology and seed collection windows on the ground. So that very well might be something we want to consider probably within Nevada as well, right?
If you're willing to share some of your work, please send it over to me. And we, would like to work together, potentially build our own type of database, just kind of based off of that. So please do if you're able to.
Okay, I think we have about 15 minutes left. So one more would be where can civilians get access to native plants and or native seeds?
I think we talked about the Foundation Seed Program enough, so.
That's a tricky one. I know the Reno Extension put together ones, and actually it does have some of the ones down in Nevada, but that's a question we get asked a lot. So we have shared it's on our resources. We just shared their website, but if you go to, the UNR Extension Program, Master Gardener Extension Program, you can find a list there. Nevada Bugs and Butterflies have a list. But I think all three of us actually were involved in creating that list. We do go out and check. I went, someone will suggest somewhere that's good and you go and check and you find out, okay, yes or no. But it's tricky. It's really difficult. That was why I was asking, can you send us your links? Because we promote Walker Basin has been fabulous this year because it was open Wednesdays, isn't it?
We're open
every other.
Here we're hoping to do something similar. We might cut down our summer hours a bit and be more open in the spring and the fall for planting. And we also hope to have seed sales soon.
Wonderful. And their plants are so beautiful.
They are, and they attended various events. We were talking to you at Earth Day, and you shared your list of the different events you attended. I mean, I think the Lavender Festival was one of them, wasn't it? Everything. So you're trying to get to different aspects of the public.
We're trying to do more. Also, like the Earth Day event, Lavender and Honey in Reno. Amy wants to get up to the Fallon Cantaloupe Festival next year, so getting out into the communities as well.
Amy and I attended the Cantaloupe Fest this year, and y'all's nursery is in Smith Valley, right?
Yes, it's cool. I came down.
Everyone come
Milkweed, Nevada Monarch Society has seeds and plants.
Perfect.
Yeah, we were able to give come to events is one of the things, but it's hit and miss. Say UNR UNR a day at the museum a couple of weeks ago, they saw some seed from Comstock, but so we were giving away 5 different types of seeds plus advice. And I know I said estimation earlier, I meant stratification and telling people to get them into the ground right away and some advice, because otherwise people collect them and, save them for the spring. And then it's often bird food rather than, germinating. So events are a good way to find stuff. But until we can get a nice native seed nursery, around it's going to be difficult, but they're coming. There's more and more. The 9 years I've been here, there's more and more. I'm not having to rely on my native plant friends. I can go to different places and buy stuff.
I have to say that I'm very excited to see more groups trying to propagate some of the natives. And of course, there are certain species that are really popular. I mean, when you're talking about things like globe mallow and the penstemons and sort of common wildflowers that people are seeing. But it goes across the board. There's other native plants, the shrubs. We emphasize them here at the Washoe Nursery and as well as in Las Vegas. And of course, trees. Don't forget the trees. We want to make sure that we're propagating from the lowest to the tallest. So, I think I probably speak for everyone that's producing native plants. If you're looking for something out there and you're not finding it, let us know. We'll see if we can grow it. Some of them are more challenging than others.
Yeah, we love hearing from people when they come visit us at our nursery Walker Basin, what people want. Because that's always a conversation that we're having internally, is what do people want, what are they interested in, what's worth our time going out there and finding seed for and propagating, so. And that feedback.
I'm saying the side question is, how do we educate people? You say people come and they're asking for a berry, and then you can do, so how can we also educate people to widen their hopes and expectations for native plants, not just looking for the penstemons and things, but looking for some of the others? We need to, keep getting the word out, keep talking.
Question, is there, consciousness or movement towards not disturbing the native plants to begin with? Because, to collect the seed and start in the nursery and plant them out, well, that's lovely. But to disturb them in the first place is really like, I'm a horticulture. For me, it's like personal. And so, diversity is the key to success on planet Earth. When things become a monoculture, it is, it's doesn't support life on Earth, is when things are compromised. And so if the consciousness of, the plant kingdom on Earth is elevated to a realm in human consciousness where we don't just take it for granted like we do. And so there's a shift in human consciousness where we can, have a higher, a higher demand for not disturbing the plant community, because when you rip it off, then there's death in the soil. And, and the clean air exists because of healthy life in the soil. And so how does that work in terms of human devotion to the plant kingdom?
That's a interesting topic. I think obviously in an ideal situation, we wouldn't need to collect seeds from native plants. Unfortunately, we're not in that. So it is a balancing act of, okay, how much do we take versus how much do we let remain on the land? And unfortunately, there are certain areas that require a little bit extra help than some of the other ones. And luckily we do have agencies such as Forest Service and the LM that do monitor the seed collecting activities that are happening on their respective management areas, right? And so one of the things that our seed collectors are supposed to do is they need to get permitting, right? And involved with that is a certain number of amount of plants that they can collect from. They're meant to collect up to no more than 50% off of the landscape, right? So that's one of the ways that we are trying to ensure that we do maintain that balance. And it's unfortunate that we couldn't have any of the federal partners here today. They'd probably be able to explain that a lot better than what I could. But do know that that is something that is considered by them.
Yeah, I've collected seed for Ed Kleiner, but that was a long time ago. And the 50% rule, I'm super happy to hear about.
In the urban environment, there's so many rules and different things when you look at homeowners associations and some of their requirements. So we're talking now about the home landscape. And I don't know in Nevada, but I was in Indiana for many years. And I know that some counties and some states, they have weed ordinances. People are beginning so that, you're growing native plants in your front yard and people say it's messy and they've got these rules, and the state or the county or the city, whoever it is, can come in and ask you to remove it. So really education is important. And there have been various fights in different states and counties that you can read about where they fought some of these weed ordinances and things where they are doing education to explain. I was involved with a very young botanic garden in Elkhart, Indiana, and one of the programs we taught was something called Landscape for Life, which is trying to be the horticultural equivalent to the LEAD program, so about sustainability and things. It was developed by I think it's the National Botanic Garden and the Texas one. Anyway, but so there are efforts out there to try and talk about it, but they're often just isolated little bits. But hopefully, gradually, I'm a member of the American Horticultural Society. I like plants. Back in the fall last year, they had fern bush on the front because they were talking about shrubs for our area, and they were talking about native shrubs for our area, because most of the time you're looking at Southeast or it's California or it's the Southwest. There's very little about our area, the Intermountain area, but they had several of our native shrubs that were highlighted. They're beginning to, even the American Horticultural Society, talk about native plants. So, but slowly.
That was the answer I was looking for.
I know, but it's how do you spread it? How do you make it wide?
It takes time.
It does take time, but it is I think it's beginning to come. So I've lived in the States. Well, I've lived out of England for the last 40 years, and I've certainly seen changes in landscapes happening in that time.
We have any more online? I think we got time for maybe one more.
One more. Well, I mean, the one was just pretty much answered by Emma, so I think we're all done online.
Okay. Is anyone else in question or person here? All righty, y'all. Well, thank you so much for coming out to today's forum. As a reminder to our online viewers, this is going to be the end of the portion of the forum for y'all today. Thank you so much for coming out. Again, we are going to be sharing the recording of the forum on the NDA's YouTube channel here in the next few weeks. So be on the lookout for that. If you missed anything, feel free to review that there. As well as I'm going to be sharing all of the contact information of the attendees as well as the presenters. As a reminder, if you do not want to be considered on that list, please email me by November 14th. I'll make sure that you are not included on that. And then for our in-person attendees, some of the NDA folks are going to stay here to clean up. But you are welcome to join us for lunch at the Sunset Pavilion. Again, just head out the library doors, take a right, and then you'll see the covered pavilion there. There's some picnic tables for y'all to enjoy. And then the UNR seed cleaning facility tour starts at 3:30. There are map and directions on the back of the schedule if you need that. If you need help on trying to figure out where to go, please feel free to ask me. Any other questions involving that?
How many folks we have going to the tour of the greenhouse facility? Okay. Make sure you stick around for lunch, and then we can all carpool over there in a caravan.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, thank you so much, and thanks again for coming on out today.
Thank you. Enjoy the tour.
Thanks,
Wish I could join you.
All right.